Hey, what time is it? It's our 2-year birthday show, Podblast! Yes, it's our 2-year birthday of the Nostalgic Podblast. Happy anniversary, Podience members, and happy anniversary to us. I started this show with a gentleman named Al Hardy I met at Cumulus Media 2 years ago on June 15th, 2019. And Al couldn't be here. He didn't want to drive over. And also, he's still working on his home studio. I know he wanted to be part of this, but he couldn't make it happen, but that's okay. I have a great pod blast lined up for today, and it's not going to be a retrospective. I'm not playing clips of previous pod blasts. No, we're moving forward, full speed ahead with this topic. The topic today is TV shows that we all remember that we think ran longer than they actually did. And all of these shows, with the exception of 2 that I snuck in there, ran for 2 seasons or less. And no, that's not a premonition about the fate of the Nostalgic Podblast. That's just a topic I wanted to put together. And man, I've worked for a day on this, doing a lot of research with books, not just the web, but books that I have. And I think I put together a pretty good show of shows that a lot of you will remember that you haven't thought about for years. Some that, even though they ran 1 year, you know them and you love them. So let's get started. And this is going to span from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to now. So we shall begin. I'm going to have some sci-fi, but also there's going to be comedies and westerns. It's not just going to be a nerd fest today. But before I get started, I want to give a shout out and a thanks to Barry King and Alan Sanders of BK on the Air. They had me on again 2 weeks in a row as a guest, and I had a great time over at WBHF. And as I've mentioned before, for those that don't know, their show airs Saturday mornings live from 10 a.m. to noon, but then you can catch the BK replay after this show right here on fistfulofradio.com. And of course, you can find them at fistfulofradio.com archives and on TuneIn and anywhere you listen to your fine favorite podcasts. That's where you'll find BK on the Air and us, the Nostalgic Podblast. So I want to play a clip of a show. Those that are watching on YouTube or on Facebook Live, behind me I've put up some stills of some shows we're going to discuss today. Now, it looks like a big nerd fest. It's not just going to be sci-fi, trust me. There's going to be some shows about war, all sorts of different topics. But there's a show called UFO, or they call it UFO in England. And it was shot at MGM Studios, which Amazon recently bought in 1969. And then it moved to another studio in 1970. But there's only 26 episodes, but it was just like a James Bond movie. It was so well made. I just love UFO. I'm probably going to do a show about UFO, which was the predecessor to a show called Space 1999. And the bad thing about both these shows is that they dated themselves. I wish they set them further into the future. Like UFO is set in the year 1980, and they have like all these defense systems against hostile aliens. And this show is very violent, and there's a lot of sex in it. They got away with a lot. You know, in Britain, like the Benny Hill show, they got away with a lot more than we could on American TV because of the censors and whatnot. And UFO is no exception. And they had music like Beatles songs like Get Back. I don't know how they got away with that. And even on the DVD release, you could hear the Beatles songs intact. So I'm going to play a little bit of UFO right now for those that aren't familiar. And those are all on YouTube, by the way. They've been released on Blu-ray overseas. And here in Atlanta, UFO, how I discovered it, I'm old, was way back in 1985 to 1987. It was airing on WVEU 69, which is now a CW 69 in Atlanta. But it started as a music video station in the early 80s to compete with MTV, and all they played were music videos in like late 83, 84. Then they got into airing syndicated programs, and they bought a package from ITC Entertainment. That drum roll I played at the very top of today's show was the ITC logo with a drum roll, and they played that also before The Muppet Show. But on Disney Plus, unfortunately, it's cut, as it is cut in the DVD releases of UFO and Space 1999 and all the shows that typically had that when we were growing up at the beginning of the show. You saw like a spinning ribbon, and I was always so glad when it was Space 1999 instead of The Muppet Show. But I like The Muppet Show too. It's just, I'm a nerd, and I wanted to see that. So UFO, getting started with that, aliens are actually stealing people's organs from their bodies to survive. And right out of the gate in the teaser, this lady is blown away. There's blood, there's bullets, and the aliens are pretty scary because they use real weapons, bullets, as well as laser guns and futuristic otherworldly weapons, but they use bullets. And it was just a really, really creative show, and it had sort of a great storyline about Ed Straker, who's the commander, and how he lost his wife, lost his son. He had a lot of tragedy in his life because of his dedication to defending Earth against these hostile aliens. And it was just really well done. Let me just play a quick clip of UFO that I have pulled for you guys today, you guys and gals. Let's see here. Here's a little bit of a documentary about UFO.
Live-action television series. After more than UFO was Gerry Anderson's first fully live-action television series. After more than a decade spent producing shows with puppets, the series entered production in 1969, but was set in the then future of 1980, as aliens from a distant planet began harvesting human organs for use in transplant surgery to keep their own failing bodies alive. Shadow, a top-secret international organization with their headquarters beneath a film studio in England, is established to combat the alien threat. But will even the best of the best be enough to deter the continual visits from the aliens? The first signs of an incoming UFO are usually picked up by the orbiting supersatellite SID.
This is Space Intruder Detector.
Shadow's moon base will then scramble interceptors to destroy the intruder. And once all three of them have missed the target, the next line of defense is often Skydiver 1, one of a fleet of Skydiver submarines on permanent standby around the world. As the UFO enters the atmosphere, Sky 1 is launched to seek and destroy it. But should the UFO still somehow make a landing on Earth, conveniently usually not too far from Shadow headquarters, then it's up to Shadow ground forces to close in with the mobiles. But sometimes the aliens can still sneak through undetected, and Shadow will need to keep their wits about them as they face threats the likes of which they cannot imagine.
Now don't panic, Alec.
Despite all these star vehicles, which allowed for stories set on land, in space, or under the sea, the show also included a wide cast of regular and recurring characters, with Ed Bishop's driven and determined Commander Straker proving to be one of the greatest character studies ever seen in any Gerry Anderson series. Despite often seeming cold and calculating, audiences soon got to see the vulnerable and flawed human being he really was. And several episodes focused on the personal cost Straker had had to pay in order to keep the Shadow organization functioning.
Look, it's pretty quiet here. There's nothing you can do. Why don't you go home?
What home?
In addition to fleshing out the personal lives of Straker and many of the show's guest characters, the series also allowed the organ-harvesting aliens themselves to be presented as tragic figures on more than one occasion.
Our planet is dying. Our national resources are exhausted. We must come to Earth to survive!
UFO also wasn't afraid to touch on issues like sexism and racism, even if some of its efforts must have seemed hopelessly naive even at the time.
Racial prejudice burned itself out 5 years ago.
Particularly when the show sometimes undermined its own message by placing women in positions of authority and then having the men around them act like rejects from a carry-on film.
I think your equipment is fabulous, but I am familiar with it.
And no, we don't know what the purple wigs are about either. Following the completion of the first 17 episodes,
Radiation protection.
UFO took a break in production with the closure of MGM Borehamwood, the studio where this series was being made. 9 months later, production resumed at Pinewood Studios, but since they weren't under contract, many of the cast had moved on to other work and were thus unavailable to return to the series. This led to the sudden and unexplained disappearance of many of the show's regular characters. But since the episodes were shown in a largely random order anyway, this wasn't as distracting as it might otherwise have been. Wanda Ventham returned from the first episode to fill the void left by the departure of George Sewell, and other returning cast members would fill vacant slots as needed. For its final 9 episodes, UFO became a noticeably slicker and faster-paced production than it had previously been, with Commander Straker usually finding himself at the very center of the action and pushed beyond breaking point on more than one occasion. Most of the padding that had slowed down the earliest episodes was gone, and even the original concept of the aliens themselves was refined still further, with the chilling prospect that they may need more than just human body parts to survive.
They may have no physical being at all,
Sounds like Peter Lorre.
and therefore need a vehicle, a container, our bodies.
Although some schedulers had trouble working out exactly which age group the series was aimed at, the hardware suggested a family audience similar to those of Anderson's previous series, but the sexual and violent elements of the show's stories were clearly unsuitable for children, UFO won a strong fan following and proved successful in the ratings, particularly in the all-important American markets of New York and Los Angeles. A second season was quickly commissioned, and work was already well underway when a sudden drop in UFO's ratings led to the premature cancellation of UFO 2.
Everything was going to be better. We were poised for that, and to not be able to realize it was a deep, deep disappointment. It took me a long time to get over that.
Despite this major setback, Anderson still felt that the work that had already been done on the second season could be salvaged by reworking the UFO 2 concept into an entirely new series. But that's another story.
Here we go again.
Almost 50 years after it first aired, the 26 episodes of UFO continue to enjoy repeat screenings around the world, and the show has recently gained a new lease of life in high definition. It is a series that continues to enthrall new audiences by defying their expectations. The show's bright visual style and jazzy opening titles are completely at odds with the tone of the stories it tells, and its main characters are often forced to become as ruthless as the desperate enemies they're fighting in order to protect the planet. Rumours of a revival have continued to persist for many years, with some critics now viewing the series as a British precursor to such shows as The X-Files and Fringe, which only proves once again how Anderson and his team were frequently ahead of their time with their ideas.
Is this the end or the beginning?
Whether or not we ever see a new 21st century incarnation of UFO, it looks like Earth of the 1980s will always be protected by Commander Straker and Shadow.
I'll tell you how it's gonna be.
I love that music. That was by a guy named Barry Gray, who also went on to score Series 1 of Space 1999. Just really good, larger-than-life scores. It sounded like something out of a movie. Here's the opening theme to UFO. This is very brief. I just love the theme. And this is a nice little reorchestration that someone did. This is the original. I'm going to play this for you. You soundtrack buffs out there. Barry Gray. Get my board going here. And this show is running on YouTube. You can find UFO on YouTube right now, every episode, but you got to look up Jerry Anderson UFO, or you'll see all sorts of different, here we go, different shows that are in different videos that pertain to UFOs. But here we go. Here's the original theme. here's a reorchestration a fan did. I like this. I like that organ. A lot of the actors in UFO went on to be in James Bond movies, a lot of British productions. The first episode is called Identified, so go to YouTube in your spare time and look up Jerry Anderson's, Jerry with a G, not a J. Jerry Anderson, looks like Gary Anderson, Gerry Anderson, letter U, letter F, letter O, and then Identified. That's the pilot. And you see this poor woman get blown away right out of the gate by an alien. She gets her brains blown out. There's a lot of sexism in it, like a James Bond movie. I love it. I think the show is just well made. There's a moon base. They have defenses. Get this, the headquarters is under a movie studio, supposedly. And then they have SID that you heard in the documentary piece, which is a satellite that can detect alien ships approaching Earth. And they launch interceptors, which look like the Cylon, the Battlestar Galactica Vipers. It looked like the Viper ships. And then they had a submarine underground, and they had like these mobile units that could track aliens that made it into the atmosphere. Just a really cool show. And I got a funny clip where Martin Landau, of course, was on Mission Impossible, and he went on to do Space 1999. And one of the producers, Sylvia Anderson, just trashes him and basically calls him a complete a-hole in this interview from 2013. And she's got a funny British Cockneyed accent. She's funny to listen to, but that was Jerry's ex-wife, Jerry Anderson, the executive producer of UFO and Space 1999. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to play a clip. Well, this is interesting, I think. This is a documentary about Space 1999.
Fans who grew up in the 1970s
about the horror elements of Space 1999. And Space 1999 lasted 2 seasons. 48 episodes were produced in 1974 and 1976.
For that honor. For me, however, one of the unsung kings of 70s TV horror was Space 1999. Even though I didn't grow up in the 70s and didn't see this show until the late 1990s, it's amazing how effective the show's scariest moments still are even today. Many people still have fond memories of being scared by this show, so it's time to celebrate Space 1999's
1999 sounds like Robin Leach.
Scariest moments. I should mention straight away that most of the scenes on this list come from the first season, as while the second series did occasionally try to scare its audience with scenes of death, violence, madness, disease, and creepy, possibly creepy, not sure really if they're creepy or not, aliens, it was on the whole a much more family-friendly show than it had been the previous year. Not so the first season, however. The first season was a series that understood the importance of building tension and atmosphere, and knew that sudden jump scares were nowhere near as effective as letting the fear build in the mind of the viewers and then taking it even further than they were expecting it to go. Obviously, as always, all of this is subjective, but here are my top 10 scariest moments from Space 1999. Number 10. Jackie Crawford from Alpha Child. This episode really is a game of two halves, the first of which is pretty effective in terms of horror, as the first baby born on Alpha grows into a 5-year-old boy within a matter of minutes. That alone is a really effective little bit of horror, and it once again shows that the Alphans can only be allowed to be happy for about 5 minutes tops, before something awful turns up to ruin their day.
This crazy life we lead. Nobody really knows how it's affecting us physically. Not long term.
Speaking of awful, unfortunately the story then kind of goes off the rails quite dramatically in the second half, when Julian Glover turns up with a bad haircut to play the adult Jackie dressed in, well, tinfoil underpants.
I was very happy with my birth.
But the first half is still a genuinely effective and suspenseful mystery plot, as the young Jackie charms everyone on the base while covertly gathering information on Alpha to help prepare for his people's impending invasion. What makes this work is that the kid playing the young Jackie is really good in the role.
Before the Omen.
He does look like a sweet, innocent little boy most of the time, but when he needs to be creepy and unsettling, he can certainly deliver the goods.
I saw him smile. It sent a shiver up my spine, almost as if he were mocking his mother to death.
I especially like that Koenig is the only one who can see Jackie's act for what it really is. That adds another slightly nightmarish element to the whole thing.
I think he's fooled all of us.
While it's probably fair to say that this isn't quite as strong an episode as it potentially could have been, seeing the miracle of birth twisted into something as creepy and unsettling as this definitely makes at least the first half of this episode worth a look. Just kind of watch the second half through the cracks in your fingers, otherwise you have to watch Jackie killing his mother and then making out with a reanimated corpse. Ugh. Next one.
Whichever way you look at it, their
So
behavior's suspicious.
you get the idea. I can't go through the whole thing. I'll probably do a whole Podblast on Space 1999 and UFO and the Jerry Anderson shows. They started working with puppets in the 60s, like Thunderbirds and Fireball, Exall, all these shows that were made with puppets in Europe, and they weren't shown in my area. I know Barry King, they showed him when he was growing up in Alabama, he told me. But in Atlanta, I never really watched the puppet shows. But Space 1999 was shot at Pinewood Studios, England, where the James Bond movies were filmed, and the Christopher Reeve Superman movies were filmed, except for the terrible fourth one, A Quest for Peace, which was a piece of poop. And it just had high production values, and it was syndicated in America. And again, it had that spinning ribbon before the program, just like you saw before the Muppet Show. But I loved it, and that's something to discuss later. But only 48 episodes. And at the end of season 1, here, this is the funny part with Sylvia Anderson, where she is just lambasting Martin Landau. This is pretty good. Let me see if I can find this. Here it is. She's kind of a witch, though, I got to say. There's two sides to every story. Let me get this. Here we go.
Mission Impossible, and everything they did was wonderful. So I thought, I'm never going to get anything going here properly. And so I sent the tests up to Lou, and he said, what do you think? And I told him...
She's talking about a screen test with an
the
Italian
one,
actor.
And he said, I agree with you. And Martin Landau went absolutely bananas. We were all sitting in the viewing room, and he suddenly stood up and turned into a monster and started swearing and everything. What do you think you're doing to me? And he went totally mad. And the director he shrunk into his chair, and the casting... Michael Barnes, he looked at me. I said, don't look at me. Don't do me. And I let him have his rant and rave. No one spoke up. And I stood up and I said, well, when you can speak in a bit more of a civil tone, I'll discuss it with you. But in the meantime, he's been chosen. So put up with it.
The Italian actor, a guest star, that he thought would make him look bad.
We had a costume fitting with him afterwards, and I cancelled it. I said, no, I can't go in there. He rang at home. He got worried then. Joe said, you weren't rude to him. I said, oh, yes, I was. I said, I'm not going to put up with that from anyone. I said, how dare he talk to me like that? I said, you should be worried that he's spoken to me like that. Yes, but no. I said, no, the more you give in to him, the worse he's going to get. So he rang that night when we were home to speak to me. Jerry took the phone call. I said, no, I can't be bothered tonight. I'm not in the mood to talk to him. He's got to get over that. And I'll see him tomorrow at the costume fitting. Didn't get another peep from him, really. But that's what you had to do all the time. And to me, it was very wearing, you know. So in spite of everything, Giancarlo came on the set. Everyone loved him. He did very well. And, of course, he wasn't used again, was he? Naturally not. The first series that I produced, we had was it a 5-day week or something, one of those? And we had no power at all. So... we had to get special generators in, freezing cold on the stage there. And then the art department decided to use formaldehyde on a big set. And I walked in there, I said, oh my God, I said, this is going to kill everyone off. You better clear the stage, because everyone was like passing out with formaldehyde. By this time, my home life was disintegrating, and so I didn't do the second series at all. And they brought in someone that did... Fred Freiberger, who didn't understand filming over here. You know, whereas the first series, I used to have very good script conferences. So I'd get the writers in, and Martin and Barbara Bain, who insisted to being there anyway, but anyway, I'd have them in, and we'd hammer it out and say, look, no, that doesn't seem... You've got to be believable, even when you're in an unbelievable situation. So if anything went too haywire, I'd say, no, I don't think that's going to work. But you see, the next series, Freiberger was the guy from Hollywood, and Jerry obviously thought, oh, I've got someone here that's going to agree with everything, but it didn't. And so he got more and more outrageous, Freiberger. To me, it didn't work. So that was a very difficult time in my life, to be honest. All that I worked for, I had to walk away from. And that was very, very difficult. Barry Morse, he left.
He played
well.
Lieutenant Gerard,
he
the
came
fugitive.
In to me, when I was leaving, and he said, "Oh, Sylvia," he said, "I was, we used to talk about
Clip's
things and
almost
what
over.
I was going to do and all the rest of it." He said, "I can't go around all the time walking after Martin Landau and Robert Bain." He said, "They're too wooden and everything else." He said, "I'm not going to do another series."
Sound like they're a-holes.
It was difficult. It was very, very difficult for me because Martin Landau and Barbara Bain I looked after and nurtured when they came over. They came to my house. I entertained them for dinner, with big house and all the rest of it. Anything you want to know about working over here, I'll help you. I didn't hear a peep from them the second series when they came over. They didn't pick up a phone. They didn't do anything. They weren't interested. While I was of use to them, they were. So I thought, I don't really need it. When I worked with HBO, I went over there quite a lot for breakfast. And one day I got a message. Would I like to ring Barbara Bain? No, I wouldn't.
Barbara Bain.
I didn't bother.
The co-star.
I thought, why should I bother? At a time when I needed someone to say something nice to me, they didn't want to know. And I thought, no, you want something. Or you now see that I'm doing something with a big company, and therefore I might be of use. So I didn't bother. I didn't return the call. I thought, no. So it's a lesson, really. What do you do? So the fun went out of things. It wasn't the same.
Ooh.
And it was such a pity because it was fine when we were all struggling, but once we got there, there seemed to be nothing keeping us together, really. No glue. So that was it.
Wow. Now, I met Martin Landau in 2012, and he couldn't have been nicer to me. There was a set for a Lifetime movie about Anna Nicole Smith. I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast, but I'm sure you've never heard this because who listens to every podcast that's out there, or Podblast, as it were. But he was there for a costume fitting. He played Marshall, the very wealthy older gentleman that the real Anna Nicole Smith had married. And in the biopic, she was going to play this guy. He was going to play this guy. And I swear, the door opened up. I was in a hallway, and it was just a small, closed set. And I was playing a photographer. It's just like a background thing. It wasn't a credited role, but it was a featured role, and it was a lot of fun. And this door opens up. I'm in the hallway, in between scenes, just sitting in a chair, and this light shines. And my God, it's Martin Landau. And he walks up, and I look at him, and I go, Commander Koenig. And he smiled. And we wound up having lunch. He sat right next to me, answered all my questions. It was like going to a convention, but for free. And he couldn't have been nicer. So I didn't mean to play that gossipy clip to be negative about Martin Landau. I just think it's entertaining hearing Sylvia Anderson's perspective as a producer on the show. And, there's some truth to both sides of the story. So in the best horror episode, by the way, of Space 1999 is one called Dragon's Domain. And it was the forerunner to the movie Alien. And the same guy did the special effects, Brian Johnson, in 1999, as did later in Alien. And I highly recommend that. And just like UFO, Space 1999 is on YouTube unofficially, if you just look it up. But look up Space 1999 Dragon's Domain. I remember a good buddy of mine named Jeff Logan told me he saw that when he was a kid and it gave him nightmares. So that was a really good, scary episode of that show. Then in season 2 of 1999, now I'm going to move on to some comedies and other things. So let me just stay on the sci-fi rant for a minute. They retooled the show. Barry Morse, who played Lieutenant Gerard in The Fugitive, who played Dr. Victor Bergman, Professor Bergman, he left, and they replaced him with Catherine Schell, who had guest starred in Series 1 as Maya the Metamorph. And there's a really cool little promo I want to play. Oh, here's a little bit of Catherine herself, and she's in the background in an autographed picture. Well, here's a Series 2 trailer first. Hang on a second. That was a little trailer for Series 2 of Space 1999. Very cleverly edited, where there's really no dialogue except for the end, "Commander, help me!" And that was Catherine Schell as Maya. Let's see here. Here's a promo for her. I just loved her. She could turn into anything for an hour. She could hold the form of an alien creature
with incredible powers
for an
of
hour.
molecular transformation and the new Space 1999. Watch this. Space 1999. Bigger, better, more exciting than ever. Saturday evenings at 7 here on UA 43.
That was the tagline. Hang on.
Returns to Channel 43 for a second season. See a special preview of The Ultimate Adventure Thursday night, August 19th at 8 o'clock.
Why did you attack our ship? We came in peace.
Our shit.
You send an armed ship to our planet and talk of peace.
That guy right there is Brian Blessed. He's known as the Hawkman in Flash Gordon, the movie. I'm sure a lot of you remember Flash Gordon. Gordon's alive! That's Brian Blessed, and he played Maya's father, and spoiler alert, he dies at the end of the first episode of Series 2 when they pick up Maya from the planet Psychon. And it explodes at the end, and her dad's killed, and so she becomes a resident alien, kind of a token alien like Mr. Spock. I think they kind of copied Mr. Spock on Star Trek, but she was very, very attractive. She'd been in the Pink Panther movie, The Return of the Pink Panther, previously. And I do want to play, and then I'll move on from sci-fi. I promise. Here's a little brief on-set interview of Catherine on the set of an episode of Space 1999 called A Matter of Balance. Let me see if I can get this to go with my board. And don't be bored out there.
In the Pink Panther, I played a human. And in this, I'm playing an alien. I'm playing a Psychon. You don't know what a Psychon is? No, I don't blame you. It's a planet that they come across, from Moonbase Alpha as the moon just sweeps through space. They come across a planet called Psychon. Sorry, these are bees that are going around. And they're looking for a particular mineral, which their sensors have picked up that the planet contains this mineral. And they go to explore, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things happen to them, and some awful things as well. And amongst them is they meet up with me, and the planet is about to explode. And I'm telling you it in about that little. And as all of that happens, they rescue me. And this is how I become the resident alien of Moonbase Alpha. I have the power of molecular transformation, which means that at any time I can transform myself into anything that's alive. I mean, it could be a tree, it could be a plant, it could be a carrot, or all sorts of animals, other people, other space creatures. Whatever I can concentrate on, which is alive, I can transform myself into. I've been a gorilla. I've been King Kong. I've been a black leopard, various birds, beautiful sort of like hawk type birds. I've been a mouse, a beetle. I've been a tiger, a lion. Those are the animals. A dog, several kinds of dogs actually, and space creatures, weird, sort of strange, wonderful creatures. Well, I was a little bit lucky with this one because I did do one episode on the last series, so I knew Martin and Barbara. I also knew the producer because of that, but they're all a tremendous group to work with, so it's quite easy to fit in, and everybody sort of has made their own place within it, and it's been very comfortable. What am I doing here today? I'm about to turn into a fox today. If you can see that animal behind me, that thing with the funny horns, I try and slip past it by becoming a fox. That's what I'm doing today.
I just love Catherine Schell's voice. There's a terrible hum at my end. Oh my gosh, I apologize, folks. Can you hear that hum? Well, moving on in the show, I promised you I'd get on to other things. Let's see what I have now. Well, you know how I did this out of order, how Sylvia Anderson was saying that basically Martin Landau's an a-hole, and how he stood up during a screen test of an Italian actor and raised hell and says, "What are you trying to do to me? You're going to ruin my career." I wanted to play a little quick clip. This is literally 10 seconds long, if I can find it, of of Martin Landau acting like an ass in a scene. Let's see here. Yeah. Just a sec. This is hard to do live sometimes. I got it right here on my board. Can you hear that hum? Jesus, this is really bugging me. God, I apologize for that. I do hear. Well, it was a funny scene where Martin Landau, funny meaning not intended to be funny, here it is, where he's just berating this poor guy. Right here. Got it. Took me long enough. This is from an episode called The Last Sunset. And he gets pissed off Martin Landau's character, Commander Koenig, that what's happened is this alien planet gave the moon, which has been blasted out of Earth's orbit. I didn't mention that. In a nuclear explosion, it's sailing through space. Preposterous
Eagle
premise.
1-5 is grounded,
Listen.
Commander.
Eagle 1 is grounded, Commander.
Apparent seizure of the lateral stabilizers. So far, 5 Eagles have reported similar faults.
He's getting
Look, Connor, we can't afford faults. We spent months drifting through space, and those technicians have nothing to do but sit on their backsides. Now I need every eagle I can get. What happens? Half of them go lame. Get those technicians moving, Connor. Get them moving! No eagle is grounded until I say so. Now go on!
What an asshole. They're breaking the necks, John. And here's Barry Morse.
John, they're breaking their necks in the technical section. So they should.
Listen, you've got to face the possibility we may not find them at all.
We've got to find them, Victor. We've got to find them.
So I just thought that showed a little bit of the, is that acting or is he really an a-hole? He wasn't to me. Now, briefly want to mention another show, The Prisoner, that lasted only 17 episodes, another British production from 1967. I'm not going to play a clip, I decided, because I think I went too long with Space 1999. But The Prisoner debuted October 1st, 1967 with The Arrival. And it ran through February 4th, 1968 with the final episode titled Fallout. And it was just an interesting story, but the big letdown was, spoiler alert, at the end it was all a dream, and it was a very psychedelic show. It looked like a Salvador Dali painting. It was very bizarre. It was just, and it starred, well, maybe BK, when he calls, he'll talk about it. But I want to talk about a cartoon series that we all think ran longer than it did, but it didn't really run that long at all. Top Cat. Let's start with Top Cat, then we'll get into the Jetsons. But Top Cat lasted only one season in prime time on ABC TV. There were 30 episodes, and it aired Wednesday nights from 8:30 to 9 on ABC. It started September 27th, 1961, and ran until April 18th, 1962. It was last rerun, not an all-new episode, but the last time it ran in primetime was a rerun on September 26th, 1962, in color. And now, the shows that were on opposite Top Cat were the hour-long show Checkmate on CBS, starring pre-Virginian, the Western Virginian, Doug McClure, and Sebastian Cabot a few years before he was on Family Affair. And Tony Randall was in that show also, and it ran 2 seasons. And also Top Cat was against the Joey Bishop Show on NBC. And here's just a couple moments from Top Cat, the cartoon, that I think are pretty good audio. Let's get some memorable moments. Do you remember Top Cat at all? It ran on WATL 36 when I was growing up here in the Atlanta, Georgia area in syndication. Top Cat by Hanna-Barbera. I'm sure Mr. Tim Walker drew Top Cat, or possibly he did.
It's nice to know the long arm of the law has a funny bone. But for your misinformation dribble, it's Dibble.
500 alleys in New York, and I gotta have one with a nut in it. What in the...
Officer Dibble! Excuse me, folks, I gotta go water the elephants. Why, Officer Dibble, you look positively nauseating. Is something wrong? If you forgot the chop suey, think nothing of it. Just give Benny the money and... All right, gang, party's over. Yeah, but... And hold that bow and arrow straighter. Okay.
You get the idea. Top Cat. Now, I like the theme song. Let me play the quick theme song. The opening of Top Cat, the cartoon show. I'll probably get dinged for it. Hope not. By the copyright bots. Oh, I will. I remember we did a cartoon show before. Well, here, just a couple of moments of it. Top Cat, the indisputable leader of the gang. Championship, and I better pull out or I'll get thrown off. Top Cat. Next up, The Jetsons. There were only 24 all-new episodes of The Jetsons on ABC TV primetime starting September 23rd, 1962 until March 3rd, 1963. It aired Sunday nights from 7:30 to 8 opposite Dennis the Menace on CBS. See, when you dig deeper, you realize why these shows didn't last long. And that's what I've done in my research. So let me continue to explain. It was opposite the hit Dennis the Menace on CBS and the hour-long Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color on NBC. And the next season, by the way, ABC did a retooling. They called themselves the New ABC. This was when The Jetsons was on, it was the season 1962 to 63. Then from 63 to 64, ABC had a rebranding campaign, and it was called the New ABC, as I just mentioned. And they ushered in new shows, The Patty Duke Show, The Fugitive with David Janssen, and The Outer Limits, which also lasted only a season and a half. You'd think The Outer Limits lasted longer than it did, like The Twilight Zone, which ran 5 seasons, but no. The Outer Limits was only on for a full season and a half. It was canceled in the middle of its second season. So this was a vanguard season the following year, and unfortunately, I think because of budget cuts, The Jetsons, it just got canceled. And, you know, Tim Walker, I held up his book for those watching live on video. He was probably a little too young to work on that. I know he worked for Hanna-Barbera. The more I think about it, he probably didn't work on The Jetsons, but I think he was inspired by The Jetsons. So I could play a little bit of the theme here. I think they shifted those dollars back then, but here is the opening and closing of The Jetsons. I love the theme song and I love the characters. Just a great, great theme tune. September 23rd, 1962 to March 7th, 1963. I'm hearing a terrible hum, y'all.
Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife.
The end titles. Love the chopsticks here. Thank goodness for the Flintstones for Hanna-Barbera, because that lasted about 6 seasons, and that was a tremendous hit. And I think it had less competition than the Jetsons and Top Cat had. Now, in 1966 to 67, this is another science fiction show, but it was called The Time Tunnel. Only lasted 1 year, and I really loved it. It was by Irwin Allen. It was a movie director who directed The Lost World, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which was released in 1961 by 20th Century Fox and became a series in the 1964 to 65 first season in black and white, then it went to color. And then he debuted Lost in Space on CBS 1965 to 66 season. So this was his next big hit, or so he thought. And it was kind of like Quantum Leap. Basically, these two dudes are lost in time. And I have like a little insider I want to play. But the time tunnel, before I get to the clip, I want to mention that it ran on ABC Friday nights from 8 to 9 p.m., and it was in summer reruns from July until September 1967. And in September 67 was the last time it aired on ABC. The time slot changed from 7:30 to 8:30 on September 9th, 1966 when it debuted. That was the original time slot. Forgive me. The original time slot was 7:30 to 8:30 on Friday night. It started September 9th, 66 to September 6th, 67. But get this, it aired opposite the Wild Wild West on CBS, which would have been in its second season, the first season in color for Wild Wild West. That's why it didn't make it, I bet. And then also, it was opposite, in its second half, Hogan's Heroes, which was starting its second season on CBS, and Tarzan. And then also, when it moved, it was up against The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is a big hit show on NBC. And U.N.C.L.E. stands for, by the way, the United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. And it was just a huge success for them, for that network. But what was cool about the time tunnel, and I have the first episode on film, the pilot, Irwin Allen only directed the first episode. And Dr. Tony Newman, he's a 30-year-old guy played by James Darren, and he experiments because this ass senator is going to cut the funding of the Time Tunnel Project. It's a government-funded project, and it's underground in the desert. And so Dr. Tony Newman, he escapes in time. He wants to prove this is viable. Don't cut the funding, Senator. And he gets lost, and he winds up on the bridge on the deck of the Titanic. It was really well done. It's nothing like the James Cameron Titanic, of course, but it was really well done. And also in the cast was Lee Merriweather, former Miss America winner, as Dr. Ann McGregor. And they were constantly trying to rescue, through their machines and the headquarters, Doug, and then this guy, Robert Colbert played Doug Phillips, and he tried to go in and rescue his friend who experimented and got lost in time. And here's the opening theme by Johnny Williams, and it's narrated by Dick Tufeld, who was the voice of the robot on Lost in Space.
2 American scientists are lost in the swirling maze of past and future ages during the first experiments on America's greatest and most secret project, the Time Tunnel.
Kind of annoying.
The Time Tunnel.
The Time Tunnel. So it only lasted 30 episodes, and it was unresolved. But they had episodes that dealt with the far-flung future. Robert Duvall was in an episode, as well as some other notable guest stars. And I have one other little clip from the Time Tunnel. I think it was just a very ambitious, expensive project. It's too bad it didn't make it and last longer. I think you might find this interesting. Yeah, here's a little inside the Time Tunnel. This is very brief, and then we'll move on to some comedies. And Irwin Allen, in his own words.
Up, scope.
discussing the time tunnel. He's on the bridge of the Seaview from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Welcome aboard the Seaview, gentlemen. I'm Irwin Allen, the producer and sometimes writer-director of this new series. I was just checking into a few of our future segments. If you'll just look over my shoulders, we'll take a peek into the future.
It was exciting.
Come on.
Time tunnel. They're in a jet, as you can tell.
The place, somewhere in the American desert. In a complex more than 800 stories beneath the desert floor, the United States government has been spending billions of dollars on a top-secret project involving more than 12,000 specialized personnel living in their own self-contained city.
Ever seen anything like this before in your life?
The mission. As scientific director of the complex, Doug Phillips heads a team trying to be the first to send a man into time and return him without harm.
The control of time is potentially the most valuable treasure that man will ever find.
The problem, the project has yet to accomplish its objective. The government is threatening to cut off any further funds, thus jeopardizing the hopes and dreams of the dedicated thousands who work here. The solution. Assistant director of the complex, brash young Dr. Tony Newman, proposes a radical acceleration of the program to force the issue and extend the government's commitment.
You mean today? Absolutely not. We just give up, is that it? We put our lives into this project.
I'm not going to commit murder, and I'm not going to allow you to commit suicide just to satisfy a budget. That's no answer. That's not even science.
His ideas rejected by his peers, Tony decides to take matters into his own hands and send himself into the time tunnel.
This is a red alert. Red alert. All time tunnel personnel report to their stations on the double. Red alert. Red alert. This is a red alert. Red alert. All time tunnel personnel report to their stations on the double. Doug catch us trouble? Not now, he'd burn alive. George, start the countdown.
14, 13.
Pray that it works. All right, start location probe. Jerry, see if you can synchronize the time probe. Ray, give us a power and distance reading. And find what specific radiation Tony used.
I'll try.
Tony just finished developing a radiation bath. That was the blue mist you saw just before he disappeared. Now, in theory, this should give us a magnetic fix, like a homing device, to enable us to locate him in time.
Doug, we've collated the automatic settings that Tony used. The energy he employed could not have sent him more than 100 years forward or back in time. Probably less.
And reduce your limits. Ray.
I know, Doug. I'm beginning to get some irregular coordination.
Unless we can return him here or to some other time zone within seconds, we'll kill him. That's what you're thinking, isn't it?
Not exactly. We have a friend that's in danger. You are trying to protect me from that danger. I appreciate that. Tony's risking his life to succeed where I failed. Now, if we don't have the faith in what we're doing here and the guts to back up that faith...
You let me go if our positions were reversed?
Probably not. I'd turn Tony down. But I'm hoping you're tougher than I am.
Prepare your briefing procedure.
Ray, you'll be calling the scientific shots from this end. Don't gamble unless you have to, but if you do have to, go for broke. Don't worry.
16, 15.
In the hope of saving his friend's life, Doug joins in the greatest adventure in the history of man.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
But as he joins his friend, something goes wrong.
Can we establish any limits?
Out with strict. Hurry, they're dying!
Accelerate power.
Two men tumbling helplessly through time. Their lives at the mercy of the events of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Well, wherever he and Doug are now, at least they're together.
Oh, yes.
If we do this, you realize we may never regain contact with any of them again.
Switch them.
Now, Doug and Tony must rely on their colleagues and friends to find them and bring them home.
The Time Tunnel. Very well done, and it holds up to this day, I think. And it was very dramatic. It's been released on DVD. It was streaming on Hulu.com. I'm not sure if it still is. But the narrator, as I mentioned before I started that long clip, is Dick Tufeld, the voice of the robot on Lost in Space, and the narrator of Lost in Space, which had started a year before the Time Tunnel. But the Time Tunnel didn't make it. And I just think it was a real shame. It just had that stiff competition up against Wild Wild West and Hogan's Heroes. Oh, brother, we have a call. All right, let's see who it is calling the Podblast for our 2-year special. Hello, Nostalgic Podblast. Who's this? You're on the air. Yeah. That was weird. Well, let's continue on with a sitcom, shall we? A sitcom starring Sally Field. From 1965 to 1966, it was starring Sally Field and Don Porter, and it was Gidget. Here's a little bit of the theme to Gidget. And we're going to get up to the 70s and 80s. Just hang in there. Here's Gidget.
If you're in doubt about angels being real, I can arrange to change any doubt you feel. Wait till you see my Gidget. If you want her for your Valentine, you're gonna say she's all that you adore, but stay away. Gidget is spoken for, you're gonna find that Gidget is mine.
Sounds like Frankie Avalon, but it's not him. I like this guitar coming up here. Yes, that was Gidget, starring Sally Field. Only lasted 1 year. And it was on Wednesday, right after a third season episode of The Patty Duke Show, which was its final year. Lasted 3 seasons. And it was on from 8:30 to 9 Wednesday nights through January 1966. And then this is where the networks make the big mistakes, when they shift the schedule where the loyal viewers can't tell where the show has gone to. They moved it to Thursday nights from 8 to 8:30 from January 66 until its last airing, which was a rerun on September 1st, 1966. There were a total of 33 new episodes, but it was opposite the Beverly Hillbillies, CBS's #1 show, and against the second half of the 90-minute Virginian Western In Color on NBC. The last new episode of Gidget aired on April 21st, 1966 on ABC, and as I mentioned, the reruns ran through September 1st, 1966. And Johnny Tillotson sang that theme song. Easy for me to say. Johnny Tillotson sang the Gidget theme tune. And I have another one here, no clip, but this show only lasted 1 year. It was The Green Hornet on ABC, which was sort of a spin-off, and they did crossovers with Batman, the Adam West Batman show. The Green Hornet only, like the Time Tunnel, had 30 episodes produced, and it aired from September 9th, 1966 until July 14th, 1967 on ABC TV. It aired Friday nights from 7:30 to 8, starring Van Williams and Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, the martial artist, starred in The Green Hornet, and the theme was a version of The Flight of the Bumblebee, classical music. And actually, the time tunnel came on after The Green Hornet. And it was up against the Wild Wild West on CBS and Tarzan on NBC. So The Green Hornet didn't make it, but it was a pretty cool adventure show. They didn't have the cliffhangers like Batman had, but it's very notable. And at first, it was a hit, but then it just petered out. The Addams Family. You know, we think it aired for so many years. You know, we're used to the movies in the 90s with Raul Julia. But the original Addams Family only ran 2 years. It ran 2 seasons, and it was on before The Munsters by a few days. The Addams Family began airing on ABC Friday nights from 8:30 to 9 p.m., debuting on September 18th, 1964, and it lasted, like I said, only 2 seasons. The last new episode aired on April 8th, 1966, but the last primetime rerun aired on September 2nd, 1966 on ABC. Season 1 of The Addams Family was opposite The Entertainers on CBS, and that was like the tagline for The Entertainers was a sparkling hour of fun and music. And it had Carol Burnett and Bob Newhart and singer Caterina Valente in the top billing. And John Davidson and Dom DeLuise were also on that show, but it only lasted 1 year, The Entertainers. And also, Addams Family was opposite the Bob Hope Presents Chrysler Theater on NBC. In season 2, The Addams Family was up against the debut of the runaway hit Hogan's Heroes on CBS and Convoy on NBC. And Convoy only lasted 13 episodes. Convoy was an American television show set during World War II. It was kind of a knockoff on 12 O'Clock High. It appeared on NBC from 1965 to 1966, just 1 year, just 13 episodes. That's not even a full order of episodes. And that show starred John Gavin as Commander John Talbot of the U.S. Navy destroyer escort to DD-181, and John Larch as civilian merchant Captain Ben Foster of a cargo ship, the Flagship. And they were involved with a convoy of ships and their escorts that helped them transport food, supplies, and war materials across the Atlantic during the Battle of the Atlantic. Now, if you want to know more about the Addams Family, refer to the Nostalgic Podblast episode 5. It's not on YouTube. It's only on TuneIn and wherever you find your podcast. It's on Apple, and it's on fistfulofradio.com in the archives section. We did a show on the Addams Family and the Munsters. Speaking of the Munsters hit the scene on CBS. Oh, you know what? I should play the Addams Family theme. We've heard it. God, it's such an anthem at sporting events. I've heard it at basketball games, baseball games. Gotta play some of it.
They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, the Addams Family. Their house is a museum. When people come to see them, they really are a scream, the Addams Family.
Neat. Sweet. Petite.
So get a witch's shawl on, a broomstick you can crawl on. We're gonna pay a call on the Addams Family.
The Addams Family, what a classic. There's always the debate. Do you like the Munsters or do you like the Addams Family? I'm on Team Addams Family, but I like both. But speaking of the Munsters hit the scene on CBS days after the Addams Family debut. Addams Family debuted on the 18th of September 1964, and the Munsters debuted on a rival network CBS on September 24th, 64, just 6 days after that premiere of the Addams Family on ABC. The last new episode aired on May 12th, 1966 of The Munsters on CBS, and it was on Thursday nights from 7:30 to 8, opposite The Flintstones on ABC, and against the first season debut of Daniel Boone on NBC. Now, in the second year, this is where the Munsters took a beating in the ratings. It was opposite Shindig on ABC during season 2. The last primetime episode, a rerun, aired September 1st, 1966 on CBS. Now, the in-color movie Munster Go Home, the first time you really saw the Munsters in color, that hit the theaters on June 15th, 66, days after the last, about a month actually, after the last original Munsters episode aired on May 12th, 66. The movie came out June 15th, 66, and Richard Dawson from Family Feud and Hogan's Heroes was in that. He said it was the worst thing he ever did. According to Richard Dawson, in an interview I saw with him, he said he's just ashamed of it and he wished he never did it. Obviously, he was happy to take the paycheck, right? But he did not like that movie. Here is the opening to the Munsters. Got to give equal time since we played the Addams Family. Pat Priest, Butch Patrick. I like Pat Priest. She was my favorite cast member, and she wasn't the original girl. Now, we talked about The Man from U.N.C.L.E., right? There was a spinoff only lasted 1 year starring Stephanie Powers called The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. And I'll explain why it didn't make it, but The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., and U.N.C.L.E. again stands for the United Network Command for Law and Enforcement, starring Stephanie Powers. Years before Heart to Heart, she was here portraying Agent April Dancer. That sounds like an exotic dancer, doesn't it? April Dancer. It aired Tuesday nights from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. from September 13th, 66 until August 29th, 1967. Now, that includes reruns, these dates I'm giving you. That's the last time it was in network TV in prime time. It was opposite the fifth and final season of Combat with Vic Morrow on ABC, and the first year of Doctari on CBS, which wound up running for a total of 4 seasons. And here's how, this is very brief, how the theme of The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. sounded. And Jerry Goldsmith had scored the theme from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Jerry Goldsmith is a very prolific movie composer, God rest his soul, just like John Williams. Here's the Girl from U.N.C.L.E. theme. I think the competition did that show in because it was not a bad show, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. Just didn't make it. Now, there was a cool show in the 70s. We're going to flash forward a little bit to the 1970s. This was a show, see, again, these are shows that I thought lasted longer than they did. There was a show called Cliffhangers, and it had 3 different stories, including one with the modern-day Dracula, and it had a story called Stop Susan Williams, starring Susan Anton, and it was an NBC show. And it ran from February 17th, 1979 to May 1st, 1979. There were only 11 episodes that were produced, including 1 unaired episode. So only 10 of them aired. But I watched it. I remember when I was a kid, I loved that show. Kenneth Johnson produced it for Universal, and he had produced and directed episodes of The Incredible Hulk. He did the first pilot for that in 77. He'd done The Bionic Woman. And he went on to do V, the original miniseries with the Lizard People. We'll talk about V later. But it was a really cool show. The trouble is, it was on Tuesday nights from 8 to 9, opposite Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, the Power Hour of ABC, and against the Paper Chase TV version of the movie on CBS. It was just a cool show that I recall from being a kid. Let me see. I'm going to play an NBC promo of Cliffhangers to give you, just close your eyes and listen to this.
3 continuing action.
Don Pardo is narrating this. Let me back it up. Here we go.
Cliffhangers. 3 continuing action-packed stories in one show. First, The Secret Empire. Marshal Jim Donner rides out of the past right into the future and discovers a secret city beneath the earth, filled with wonders and packed with thrills, far beyond the dreams of mortal men. A city ruled by an evil emperor whose one goal is to control all mankind. Next, A beautiful newspaper reporter travels the globe
Susan
to
Anton.
uncover a plot which will end the world. But when this ring of master spies finds she's hot on their trail, all they want to do is stop Susan Williams. Then it's Dracula 79. The Prince of Darkness has returned to cast his spell upon the unwary. But the evil Count will never rest in peace, for Kurt and Mary have sworn to end his immortal reign. Can goodness triumph, or will Dracula rule the day? Watch Tuesday on NBC. They don't call them cliffhangers for nothing.
It was really good. I don't care what anyone says, it just got a bad time slot, as did a lot of these shows. Got some Facebook comments I will read in a moment. I just wanted to play a little bit of the first episode of Cliffhangers. This is the opening to Cliffhangers. It was really cool, and there's a little bit of it on YouTube. I wish they'd release it on home video or streaming.
The lure of the exotic. The shock of the unexpected. The breathlessness of suspense. The amazing escapes. Cliffhangers. 3 new chapters filled with menace. Surprises. Romance. Death-defying action. Astonishing adventures into the unknown. And just when all looks hopeless against impossible odds, the thrill of the rescue. Cliffhangers, bringing you tonight Chapter 2 of Stop Susan Williams, Chapter 3 of The Secret Empire, and Chapter 6 of The Curse of Dracula. All 3 tonight on Cliffhangers.
They had lied. These weren't like Chapter 4 or Chapter 6. It was the first episode. They made it sound like it was in the middle of a storyline. Maybe that confused viewers, I would think. But Susan Anton was just gorgeous. And that music, that was by Joseph Hartnell, who, Hormel, sound like the Dinty Moore stew or something. But Joseph Hartnell had used those cues since the show got canceled later in The Incredible Hulk. I'm just a music nerd. Now, let's talk about some sitcoms. The Ropers. The Ropers was a spinoff of Three's Company, and what happened was ABC spun them off towards the end of the 3rd season of Three's Company, and Norman Fell, who played Mr. Roper, wanted nothing to do with it. He did not want to leave a hit show in like the top 3 to do a spinoff, and he asked for a guarantee. He goes, if it doesn't make it a season, then I want to return to Three's Company, and he was promised that in this contract. But the Ropers, it just ran for a season and a half, so he got screwed. And they did do an episode, Night of the Ropers, I think in season 5 of Three's Company, where they did bring the Ropers back, and they were staying in their old place, Mr. Furley's apartment. But the Ropers actually had some pretty good comedy. It gets a bad rap. People always knock it, and it's very rare. There's only 22 episodes. And they used to syndicate some of the Ropers with the Three's Company package for reruns by D.L. Taftner. They're the distributors of Three's Company. But the Ropers, they got screwed by the network because at first it was like a top 8 show. It debuted on March 13th, 1979, towards the tail end of the 78-79 season, and it ran until May 22nd, 1980. And it peaked at number 8 in the ratings because it originally was on Tuesdays from 10 until 10:30, but then ABC moved it against Chips in Chips' heyday in their 3rd season of Chips. Chips lasted 6 seasons. Anyway, they moved it to Saturday night, which was a huge, huge mistake. Here's a funny interview with Jeffrey Tambor, who you know from the Larry Sanders Show, talking about working on the Ropers. And of course, he bashes it and acts like he just did it for the money. But this is kind of a cool interview with Jeffrey Tambor. It's not very long.
I've often wondered what I was thinking. Oh, I know what one of the things I was thinking was. They were paying me a lot of money. I mean, for a young man, I remember it, $6,000. That's a king's ransom
per episode.
Per episode, $6,000. And in my naivete, I went, well, we'll just do a couple. I mean, none of these things run, do they? I remember Norman and Mickey Ross coming backstage. Oh, with Ted, one of the producers, Ted Bergman, coming backstage, and I just sort of let it go on. It just sort of happened. All of a sudden, I'm meeting Marcy Carsey at ABC. I'm sort of reading something. I say he's fine, and I'm doing it. And that was I had just done And Justice for All. So you have And Justice for All, and you have The Ropers, and I couldn't quite figure out what I was quite doing. And then that's sort of been my career. You go where the work is, and it was so much fun. Again, I did not understand what television was. I did not understand. I treated it like theater. I had no idea that I would say something and it would go out. But I remember it came out on a Thursday. I believe it was on a Thursday. And I was walking up the stairs of the subway on 42nd Street going to a rehearsal. And someone said, "Oh, look, there's that television actor." And I went, "Darn." And my life changed. Well, there's a thing in television, there's a thing in Commedia dell'arte, there was this wonderful actor who's, people ask about influences. There was a wonderful actor named Fred Clark. And he was bald, and he had a mustache. And, in comedy, the bald man is usually the dentist, the lawyer, the principal, the teacher, for some reason. And I had fallen into that specific sort of stereotype. So it was fun. I always liked playing the bad guy. I always liked playing the antagonist.
He was good at it. He was good in The Ropers. So I hate it when people bash the project that they were really good at, for whatever reason. Maybe it's fashionable to bash it. I don't know. But The Ropers, also they introduced Patty McCormick as his wife, Ann Brooks. Jeffrey Tambor played the snob Jeffrey Brooks. He was a real estate agent. And he hated Mr. Roper. He hated Stanley Roper, and sometimes for good reason, because he dressed kind of scruffily and like a bum. And he embarrassed Jeffrey when he's trying to entertain clients and potential new customers. And Patty McCormick, though, as his wife, was really pretty, and she had been in The Bad Seed. That's what she was known for previously, before The Ropers aired. Here's some facts about The Ropers. Let me see if I can get this to go. I like The Ropers. I don't care what anybody says. The Ropers was a funny show, and it airs on Antenna TV. It's never been released on home video, on DVD, or streaming as of yet.
Is one of the all-time funniest shows in TV history. Even in 2020, the show is still beloved by viewers, featuring material that is just as relevant now as it was in 1977. But what happens when two of the show's most popular characters are given a spin-off while the show is still in top form? That happened to unfortunate results. Here are 5 fun facts about The Ropers. Number 5. Based on a British spin-off. The 1973 UK series Man About the House was the basis for the show's anchor story Three's Company. When Three's Company premiered in the United States in 1977, the show was considered an instant hit. In the UK, the Ropers were given their own spin-off named George and Mildred, which was just as successful. 2 seasons after the show's premiere, ABC wanted to have lightning strike twice and were able to convince Audra Lindley and Norman Fell to star in an American version of The Ropers. Which leads to number 4, Norman Fell wanted no part of The Ropers. When ABC first approached Lindley and Fell to star in the spin-off, Fell thought it was a terrible idea and wanted nothing to do with it. He wasn't sure why ABC wanted to fix something that wasn't broken, being Three's Company was in its prime and doing very well in the ratings. The network was able to convince Fell to try the new show by promising him that if the show was canceled before the end of the first season, they could return to Three's Company, no questions asked. Still reluctant but willing to work with the network, Fell agreed to the terms. Number 3. The show was killed in the Saturday night death slot. The show was successful as part of the 1978-79 ABC Tuesday night lineup, which in addition to Three's Company included Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and Taxi. But for the show's second season, inexplicably, the Ropers were moved to Saturday nights where TV shows typically go to die. As expected, the ratings dropped miserably. Film made a personal plea to ABC to bring the show out from the death slot, but it was too little too late as the show was canceled near the end of its second season. And since the show went past one season, ABC didn't have to bring the Ropers back to Three's Company. Ouch. Number 2. Another Roper spin-off was proposed. In 1986, a series named Three Apartments was proposed by distribution company D.L. Taftner. The show would feature Lindley and Fell as the Ropers, with guest appearances by characters from Three's Company, Three's a Crowd, and Too Close for Comfort, essentially creating a completed version of the Taftnerverse. The show was never picked up by any network nor syndication. And the number one fun fact about the Ropers, it is considered one of the worst shows of all time.
That's bullcrap.
Although fans of the show believe the spin-off series was quite funny, and it was, TV Guide still called the Ropers one of the worst shows in TV history.
That's not fair.
Although very deep on the list at number 49, they are nestled between the Andrew Dice Clay Ghost family-friendly series Bless This House and the ever-prominent Barney and Friends. The Ropers was an unsuccessful spin-off for all the wrong reasons. It was a show with great potential that was dealt terrible hands through poor scheduling. Reruns can still be seen on Antenna TV today. If you loved Three's Company, check out The Ropers. You might be pleasantly surprised.
And thank you. That report was from Scapino Media, Scapino Media on YouTube. That's their YouTube channel. And I agree with most of what he said there. It was the network's fault that it got screwed. I won't play the opening. I was going to play the... Hang on a second. I'm going to play a clip from the Ropers, a funny bit. Just a sec. Here's the damn theme. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's not very good. Stanley Roper's dancing with a friggin' plunger in his hand. Anyway. Let me get it forward here and get a clip for you guys. I love Mr. Roper. I love when he break the fourth wall and look into the camera.
Stanley, where are you?
I'm in the shopping center parking lot. My car won't start.
So what else is new? Did you call the tow truck?
Tow truck? Why don't I just call a mugger and hand him my wallet? No, you gotta come down here and get me.
How?
Ask that girl to drive me.
Jenny, oh, that's a good idea.
Right. And she can keep right on driving.
Nerd.
I think it's the valves. $300 if it's a cent.
I like it when they shoot on location.
You, what are you gonna do? Tie it together with your suspenders? I'll Joey look at it tomorrow. Maybe he could do something.
Yeah, he can haul it away to the nearest dump.
Hey, they don't make it worse.
That's impossible.
It's like my friend Danny's truck.
Hey, be careful, you'll dent it.
You want to try it now?
Are you kidding? It's gonna take more than a little puttering around with your nail file.
And she starts it right up.
Well, I was going to look at that next. Come on.
All right, home with Jenny. Maybe I'll go along.
So Jenny was another cousin Oliver. That was a character they strewn together. She basically broke into their condo, and they befriended her. You know, unlike reality, it's kind of like that 8 is Enough Christmas special with the actor who played Grandpa Walton, who robbed the Bradfords, and then they took them into their home for a warm family Christmas. Unrealistic TV logic. Just like with that. They befriended this lady who basically broke and entered into their home. And that was the girl who supposedly was really handy. You know, she was a good mechanic, and I don't know. I just thought it was silly. And when she showed up, it was really because the network changed it to Saturday night that the show failed, because it was in the top 10 at number 8 at its peak. Now, there was also a show called The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo that only lasted 2 years on NBC. It was a spinoff of BJ and the Bear. And it aired Tuesday nights from 8 until 9, starting September 18th, 1979, until August 25th, 1981. And anyone listening in Atlanta, what was interesting about The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo is in season 2, it became just a show called Lobo, and they set it in Atlanta. In season 1, it was set in Orly County, fictional Orly County, O-R-L-Y County, Georgia. And he was a crooked sheriff, Sheriff Lobo played by Claude Akins. But my favorite character was Perkins, his deputy, which was his wife's brother. So that was his brother-in-law, and he was just a fumbler and a bumbler, and an actor named Mills Watson played him. And I think he lives in Oregon State. You can still write him, like his P.O. box is out there, and for free, he will send you an autographed 8x10 last time I checked on the web. Now, this was like 5 years ago. He's still alive, though, but Mills Watson, he was bald, had this big head, and there were some really funny episodes with him, like with Candy Loving, who was a Playmate of the Year at the time, 1979, or I think 1980. No, she must have, it doesn't matter. I don't know my Playboy history, forgive me, but she was a Playmate of the Year, Candy Loving, I think in 1978 or 1980, and she guest starred on that show, and Mills Watson was just hilarious. Here's a little bit of when the show went to Atlanta, and the opening theme was different in season 1 versus season 2. Season 2, they did the Ray Charles hit, Georgia, Georgia. It was a cover of that. I'm not sure if it was a cover actually or if it was the original, but let me play a little bit. This is from my personal YouTube channel. I posted this Chance acting demo on YouTube. Hang on a second. Well, here's the season 1 theme. There we go. God dang it.
He walks the streets from early dawn. He stands behind our lawn. Both big and small, he bends them all. Who dares to fight his cause? He is our Sheriff Lobo, mighty Sheriff Lobo, heart of gold Lobo. Keep us strong, keep us strong.
You know who sang that was Frankie Lane. Frankie Lane, who was a successful singer and crooner. But he was replaced in season 2. And here is a little bit, if I can get it to go, of when they go to Atlanta. Oh, shoot.
The governor will be passing through Orly on his way to Atlanta in 30 minutes.
Audio's too bad. I'm going to cut this clip. I didn't know.
I want 2 units in 4 minutes.
Nope. Here's the season 2 opening from my page that I know will have decent audio. Georgia, the classic Ray Charles song. See if it'll go. Let's see here.
Idea. Well, you don't mean... That's right. We'll see if this Sheriff Lobo can do for Atlanta what he's done for Orly. Georgia?
Is that the original? I don't think it is. Somebody comment or let me know what you think. That's got to be a cover.
Just an old sweet song.
So they've shot all these scenes in downtown Atlanta back in summer 1979, right when MARTA was starting up. They show MARTA buses and the downtown Atlanta skyline. It's kind of a cool sequence for historical purposes. No. It was shot in summer 1980. My bad. 100% positive it was shot in summer 1980. Shows like these people getting mugged by thugs downtown in Atlanta. It's really funny. It's a funny opening sequence. And this is on YouTube under Lobo, L-O-B-O, Season 2 intro. And that's from my personal YouTube channel. I recorded this way back when and uploaded it. It's showing the skyline, and it's just amazing how Atlanta's changed over the years. The episode's titled The Dirtiest Girls in Town, about a mud wrestling ring of women that are ripping people off. real highbrow entertainment, you know, really deep stuff.
Boy, howdy, ain't it something? It's gotta be the biggest day of my life. And the happiest day in mine. To be given an honor like this after all my years of dedicated service just shows what hard work and honest toil will do for you. Not to mention blind luck.
This Mills Watson is.
Out the governor's limo, we'd still be back. Perkins!
He wiped out the governor's limo by mistake and injured him.
Pass through your chubby cheeks again. I will personally rip off your lips and feed them to a dog.
You get the idea. You've heard the song. It's definitely not the best show in the world. It wasn't very good at all, but I did like the song by Frankie Lane in season 1. Now, Bosom Buddies, starring of all people Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari, hit the scene beginning on ABC television Thursdays from 8:30 to 9. And it ran until, it started, Thursday nights from 8:30 to 9. It started November 27th, 1980 after Mork and Mindy. And it ran until March 25th, 1982. It just lasted 2 years. And again, it was kind of the victim of bad scheduling by the network. And it was about cross-dressing dudes. Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari played dudes that, to save money, wanted to stay in an all-women's, like, dormitory-type building where it's only women allowed. And so they had to dress like women, okay? So it's kind of like a white Medea or a Big Mama's house or something like that. But it did have some stiff competition. It was against a show that was really getting stale. The Waltons on CBS when it aired on ABC, and a show called Games People Play on NBC. Then the network moved it from Thursday to Friday night, killing the ratings momentum because it was doing well because the Waltons was teetering out with the viewers. But then they moved it and screwed it all up. But here's an interesting thing. The opening theme was a cover to the Billy Joel song My Life. And the dumb thing is, my friends, when it was released on home video on DVD and in syndication on MeTV, they took the song out. I guess the Billy Joel people or the lawyers wanted a cut, even though it wasn't the original version. And they replaced it with this nondescript music they played during the end credits. They just put that at the beginning. But I will never forget that opening. Here's the cover. And I always thought Tom Hanks sang this. Let me see if I got this. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Let me play this first. This is the network pitch, ABC to Bosom Buddies to the viewers. This is kind of a cool little piece of audio.
What do people like? People like,
Tom Hanks.
comedy.
That's right. And one of the funniest comedies you'll ever see is Bosom Buddies.
All right, either trust me or just take off, eh? All right, okay, I'm sorry. I trust you. Now, will you take her out? I'd be happy. Thanks. Should I dress like this? Sure. Take her to a restaurant on Pluto.
Meet Kip and Henry, two red-blooded, all-American guys out for a good time.
Come on, Kip, you've known me long enough. You know that the physical thing is not going to be the biggest concern in the world to me, okay? As long as she's built. All right.
Got it. Okay. Anything else?
Well, she should be tender, non-competitive, a little smarter than me so that she can keep me on my toes.
Sort of a Madame Curie with Bawakas?
Exactly.
They're bosom buddies. They've been thrown out of their apartment, and the only place they can afford is a hotel for women.
Sidewalks, busy sidewalk.
That cream doesn't work unless you rub it in all over.
This is vanishing cream, so I guess I better vanish.
And this place is filled with the sexiest women you've ever seen.
Good job, God.
Including Donna Dixon.
Forgot my keys. Well, onto the hot tub. Bye. Stand up.
Isabel is their nosy next-door neighbor.
Okay, now turn around.
Amy helps hide the guys because she has the hots for Henry.
It's over. It's a touchdown. Why are you tackling me?
Oh, because it feels so good.
Down at the ad agency, Ruth is their spaced-out boss.
Hey, I'm not clothed.
Well, everyone in New York will recognize you.
Tom Hanks is making a big hit on the big screen. In the movie Splash, Hanks had the whole country head over heels swimming with laughter. His next picture was Bachelor Party, and that night out was another hit.
Number 3. I am sexually stimulated by...
Kip.
Kip, very good answer.
Donna
Tom Hanks'
Douglas.
bosom
Donna
buddy is
Dixon.
Peter Scolari, one of the funniest guys on TV.
Don't leave me here. I hate this stupid accent.
It's a cold, cruel world out there, little buckaroo.
Set me free.
Me first.
Me first.
Me first. All right. All right, all right. Shh.
Yes, nice.
Quiet. Adios, amigos.
When you back up Hanks and Scolari with an outstanding ensemble cast, you get a very funny and a very sexy comedy.
And your pulse is rapid. Too rapid.
Well, I guess it must be some sort of illness, huh?
Sudden weakness, chills, fever, loss of coordination, any glandular swelling?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Kip, are you going to let me say what I have to say without saying a word until I'm done? Well, maybe I was a little hasty in doing this without consulting you. But there wasn't time. It's not bull. Uncle Mort had to sell quick. Now, we could sell it back if Uncle Mort hadn't already left for Mexico.
You get the idea.
The damage is done. I mean, what am I supposed to do?
This was actually a pitch because obviously they referenced Splash and Bachelor Party. And this was for a network pitch to air it in reruns in the summertime on ABC. And Ernie Anderson's narrating it, who was one of the best voices in television history.
If there was something I could do, something I could say, some action I could take.
You get the idea. That was Bosom Buddies. It only lasted 2 years. And I always thought that was Tom Hanks singing this version of the opening of Bosom Buddies with the song My Life, which has been stripped from history and replaced. But here's the original opening to Bosom Buddies. And it's not even a very good cover of the song My Life by Billy Joel.
When we first moved to New York, we had a great apartment that was dirt cheap.
And we found out why it was so cheap.
Our friend Amy said there was a great apartment in her building.
Dirt cheap, but it's a hotel for women. Okay, we made one adjustment.
Now these other ladies know us as Buffy and Hildegard.
But they also know us as Kip and Henry, Buffy and Hildy's brothers. I am
Real gender
crazy
bender.
about the blonde.
This experience is going to make a great book.
See, it's all perfectly normal.
This sounds like Tom Hanks singing. Check it out. That's Tom Hanks singing that.
This is my life. Go ahead with your own life. Leave me alone.
That was Tom Hanks. He probably won't admit it, but I think that was Tom Hanks singing that. So, there was another show I want to talk about real briefly, another bad one. Let me set up the clip. And it was a spinoff of Different Strokes called Hello Larry, a sitcom from the late 70s. And it was just so poorly executed by the network, and they had casting changes. Let me get my notes. Hello Larry, spinoff of Different Strokes, premiered on NBC on January 26th, 1979, towards the tail end of the 1978-1979 TV season, and it ran until April 30th, 1980. Kim Richards played Ruthie Alder. That was one of the two girls. This was a radio guy, a radio DJ, named Larry Alder in Portland, Oregon. He had 2 daughters, and he was a widower, I believe. I think he was a widower or divorcee. I think he was a widower or widow. He was widowed. And they had different girls, though, playing his other daughter, Diane. Donna Wilkes started the role, and she was best known in Jaws 2 as the girl that screams, "Shh, shh, shark!" She had a great line in Jaws 2, but she played Diane originally. And then in season 2, she was replaced by Krista with a K, Krista Erickson, best known as one of the girls who was allegedly a tramp in a movie called Little Darlings. It starred Christy McNichol and Tatum O'Neal, Little Darlings. So that's where Diane came from. I mean, Krista got recognized and won the role as Diane for season 2. Not sure why they replaced Donna Wilkes. Have no idea. Also in the cast was Joanna Gleason, and she's the daughter of Monty Hall, the original game show host of Let's Make a Deal. And also in the cast was the NBA All-Star Meadowlark Lemon, and he played himself. But the real star was Larry himself, played by McLean Stevenson, who had quit MASH, the hit show MASH. He wanted out. One of the dumbest career moves ever. And they killed him off in the helicopter crash at the end of season 3 of MASH. And everything he did after that tanked. And he wound up doing game shows like Match Game towards the end of its run when it wasn't funny anymore. But this was, I guess, his most successful show after MASH, and we'll talk about after MASH later. But Hello Larry aired originally, it aired Fridays. It was right after Different Strokes originally, so it had a good lead in. It had the hit Different Strokes, and then they played Hello Larry. And it was against, though, the second half of Charlie's Angels and the CBS Wednesday night movie, second half of that. It was on Fridays from 9:30 to 10, and then the network moved it to 8:30, and then back to 9:30 to 10 in season 2, always on Friday night. So that really killed the show. Here's a little bit of the theme of Hello Larry. It's really bad. I just like to play this for historical purposes for y'all, for the audience. Let's see if this will go.
Well, hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. You talk to people all day for a living. But all those easy answers you are giving, are you really living your life that way? Portland is a long way from L.A. A long way. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. 2 kids to raise alone just ain't that easy. The questions they are asking aren't that breezy. The answers you are giving don't always pay. But that's the way it is with kids today. The calls are coming in, you better start to grin, 'cause you never know just what they're gonna say. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. Wow, hello, Larry.
Hello Larry. Kind of an annoying theme. But I watched it, and I like Kim Richards, and that is Paris Hilton's aunt. And her sister, Kylie, was in Halloween. She played the girl that Jamie Lee Curtis's character is babysitting the night he came home in the first Halloween. So that concludes the first half. I'm a little bit behind schedule of what I'd planned, but let's keep it going. I'm going to play a show that lasted 1 year on the game show circuit. Now, back in the Nostalgic Podblast 2, the second show I ever did with Al Hardy, we did one on game shows, and we didn't talk about this one, but what's interesting is this music was scored by Bill Cosby and Quincy Jones 2 years after Quincy Jones had scored the theme to Sanford and Son. It only lasted 1 year, from 1974 to 1975, but listen to this music, and they kind of barred these guys. I don't know which one it would be, but he barred the Laugh-In Season 1 theme. Hang on, I'll explain. Here's Now You See It by Bill Cosby and Quincy Jones. CBS Television Network. The drum beat. Funky. That's the laugh-in bit. Sanford & Son harmonica right there. Where else are you going to get this, folks, huh? Game show. And that, by the way, Now You See It was a word game, and it's airing on Buzzer. In the wee mornings, I DVR it sometimes. It's like at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, 2 episodes back to back, Saturday into Sunday morning, and I record it. But that was Now You See It, and I'm telling you that part of it was a ripoff of the 1968 season 1 Laugh-In theme. Let me just quickly play a little bit of what I'm talking about. Right here. That dun-dun-dun-dun. That was in Now You See It. You get the idea. This isn't TV's greatest hits hours, but I just want to explain that. I do think they took those notes. Either Bill Cosby or Quincy Jones borrowed that from that 1968 Laugh-In Season 1 for the 1974 composition for Now You See It. Here's another quick theme. This is the last game show theme I want to play, and it relates to something that's on primetime TV right now. This was hosted by Alex Trebek. It's a show called Double Dare from 1976 to 1977, lasted only 1 year. But everybody thinks this music is a theme to Card Sharks. Card Sharks, which is hosted by Joel McHale presently on ABC TV in primetime, and the new season's about to start up. I think it's the 3rd season that's going to start airing this summer on ABC TV. But here is the Double Dare theme, and it's the Card Sharks theme they use later, and I'm going to explain a mistake. Here it is, the Double Dare theme. Here's a little bit of it. Myself nuts hearing that. You get the point. That was not the Card Sharks theme. That was Double Dare. They should have used for ABC TV, if any of the executives or executive producers knew what they were doing, and I'm not saying they don't, they should have used the Bob Eubanks 1986 to 1989 version of the Card Sharks theme. This one. It would have made more sense than playing Double Dare. And that's the game show portion of today's Podblast, our 2-year anniversary. It's our birthday. The Nostalgic Podblast turns 2 years old. And I'm so glad that I created this along with Al Hardy. I really pushed him to do a show, and I'm glad that he agreed to do it. It's been a lot of fun dealing with him. So listen to Podblast episode 2, as I mentioned, for more game show clips and funny clips of like Paul Lynn from Hollywood Squares. We had a lot of good audio on that. And that was the second show we did, but it's not on YouTube. It's only on Apple or anywhere you get your fine podcasts. The Nostalgic Podblast episode 2, and it's on fistfulofradio.com in the archive section. And it's a lot of fun. Well, we got to talk about a horrible sitcom, Joni Loves Chachi. Lasted 2 years, but it really doesn't belong on this list because it seems like it lasted less than 2 years. I mean, it was just terrible. There were 4 episodes that aired as a trial basis at the end of the 1981-82 season. As Happy Days was winding down, it aired in the spring. 1982, and it aired Tuesday nights from 8:30 to 9, starting March 23rd, 1982. Thankfully, it ended its all-new episode run on May 24th, 1983. The time slot moved to Thursday nights for 2 months from 8 to 8:30 against Fame on NBC and the hit Magnum P.I. on CBS. Then ABC moved it back to its original Tuesday night time slot. Reruns stopped airing in prime time on September 13th, 1983. Now, here is the opening theme song to Joni Loves Chachi. It's so bad. And it starred, of course, Scott Baio. Listen to this. Listen to this, as Kimmer would say. This is so awful.
Something magic in the way you hold me in your eyes.
No one ever warned me love just takes you by surprise. I don't know what's come over me. You got me hypnotized when you look at me. You look at me. Soft as any touch could be. And suddenly there's magic when you look at me. I feel like I'm in heaven every moment when you look at me. Look at me.
No, I don't want to look at you. F you. Terrible. Terrible show. Joni Loves Chachi. Really bad. Here's another one. After MASH. They couldn't leave well enough alone. The producers wanted to give it another go, and so After MASH started September 26th, 1983, and it ran until December 18th, 1984. Just one season. The last new episode aired, though, on March 12th, 84, reruns continuing to December 18th, 84. It's another continuation show, kind of like Archie Bunker's Place, which was better than After MASH, and it ran for several years. But After MASH aired on CBS Mondays from 9 to 9:30, and then towards the end of the show's run, it was moved to Sundays at 8. That's never a good idea when a network just moves the time slot on the viewers. But it moved to Sundays at 8, and then to Tuesdays at 8. And then they bumped it up later that same Tuesday night from 8 to 8:30. The only original cast members that returned were Jamie Farr as Klinger, Harry Morgan, who was in Dragnet, and William Christopher as the minister. They all returned. And in the opening, they showed 1950s iconic images that flashed on the screen, like Marilyn Monroe and The Day the Earth Stood Still robot and classic cars. And here's a little bit. This is very rare, and the audio is a little rough, but here's a little bit of the opening to After MASH. After MASH. The reason I wanted to play that in its entirety is we're so used to hearing the MASH theme, you know, the regular theme. Dun, 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 na, 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 na. But you don't hear this one. It's very rare, and that's why the audio is a little rough. It's all I could find on the interwebs of After MASH. So let's see. Oh, here's one that I really liked, and I know a lot of you will remember this. It only lasted 1 year. It was a comedy in the early 80s. God, I can't believe it's been 40 years, almost pretty much over 40 years since this debuted. It's called Best of the West. It was a Western sitcom comedy, and I loved it because there was a great character in there named Frog. I'll get to that in a second, but Best of the West debuted on September 10th, 1981, and it ended on August 23rd, 1982. And it aired on Thursday nights at 8 p.m., and then they moved it to 8:30 that same night, Thursday night, and then they moved it to Friday at 9, and then to Monday at 8. So they just screwed up the network. Whoever did the programming really effed that up for them because it was a good, well-written show. And I got some modern ones I want to talk about in a minute, too, some more modern shows from 2019. So we're going to get caught up here in our final hour. But getting back to Best of the West, who was in it is someone that you know, Joel Higgins. Does that name ring a bell to you? Well, if it doesn't, no big deal, but you remember Silver Spoons, don't you? With Ricky Schroeder and Alfonso Ribeiro? Well, Joel Higgins played Ricky Schroeder's dad with Erin Gray from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. She had rebounded after Buck Rogers ended with the hit Silver Spoons. But before that, there was Best of the West. And Best of the West had some pretty good competition. It was up against Magnum PI on CBS and Barbara Eden's Harper Valley PTA series. And then also, well, it was a half-hour show, and then it was up against Lewis and Clark on NBC. So, I got a clip, but I really loved this character, Frog, and who else was in it, I'll get to Frog in a second, is Carlene Watkins. And I get her confused with this actor, Ann Bloom, who was in Not Necessarily the News on HBO, Not Necessarily the News on HBO. And who else was in the cast is Mino Pellucci. Mino Pellucci? Maybe that's how you pronounce it. Mino Pellucci. And he was a little Italian-looking kid that you'd recognize from all sorts of shows. He was in Voyagers, but you'd recognize him. And you know what? He's the older brother of Solio Moon Fry, Punky Brewster, another show that seems like it went on forever. I remember it airing alongside Knight Rider on NBC. But anyway, getting back to this show, my favorite character, and I got some funny clips of this guy, was Frog, played by an actor named Tracy Walter. And he was in a Sissy Spacek movie playing a despicable character in Raggedy Ann, I think, Raggedy something, Raggedy Man. But he was funny as hell in this. I want to play the intro to Best of the West, see if this brings back any memories for you. I love this show, and it deserved a better fate.
In days of yore, in Western lore, a man returned from Civil War. His heart beat pure beneath his vest. His name was Best of the West. But not alone did he come home. His newfound bride was at his side, and with his boy who did protest, they all came west to live with me.
Yippee-ki-yi-yo, yippee-ki-yi-yay, give three mighty cheers.
Yippee-ki-yi-yo, yippee-ki-yi-yay for the Western pioneers. And off they rode, this family, and man and wife. His boy makes three, it's through their deeds. This land progressed, hooray for best, best of the West.
It was funny. I really liked it, and I want to play a clip of my favorite character, Frog. Here's a good one. Where this guy's about to get hanged or hung, and he's...
Please! Would you mind if I said goodbye to my best friend?
He makes a mistake
Go
of trusting
ahead.
Frog to help him out of this one, getting hung.
You frog! I want you to go up behind Kincaid, put your gun in his back, and say, if he hangs, you die. If who hangs, who dies? If I hang, he dies. You want me to say, if I hang, he dies? No. You say, if he hangs, you die. I die?
What a dumbass. I just love that character. That's what made him so great. Frog. Tracy Walter. I got another quick clip of him, too. Call Me Frog is what this clip is called. He's just such an idiot. You know, the typical dumbass.
Who are you? Folks call me Frog.
Well, what's your real name?
Frog. That's why folks call me that.
See, he's just an idiot. He's a town idiot. Just loved him. You know, kind of like Otis the Drunk, I guess, and Andy Griffith's show. But I really like Frog a lot. So that show only lasted 1 year, but it seems like it ran longer. It's turned up over the, well, really long time ago now, but it was on TV Land when they'd have occasional marathons. Same with the Ropers. They would air these short-lived shows just in like a mini marathon, not the whole set of episodes, but just a few select ones. I want to mention Fridays on ABC. They tried to copy Saturday Night Live. Remember Fridays? It only lasted 2 years, but Fridays was a Saturday Night Live clone. It aired from April 11th, 1980 until April 23rd, 1982. Larry David was in it. That was one of the first things he did from from Seinfeld and all the great things that Larry David has done of late. And Michael Richards, Kramer, future Kramer from Seinfeld, was in the cast of Fridays on ABC. And the opening sequence was such a rip of Saturday Night Live. I'm going to play just a little bit of it because it's so bad. And this guy's no Don Pardo that's announcing it. Uh-oh. Ad time.
Live from the Los Angeles Basin, it's Fridays. Starring Mark Wakefield, Mary Edith Burrell, Melody Chartoff, Larry David, Darrow Igus, Brandis Kemp, Bruce Mahler, Michael Richards, John Rock, Johannes the Parakeet, and special guest star, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Hey!
And I'm Jack Burns. And right now, speaking on behalf of the entire cast, here is Brandis Kemp.
So that was Fridays, and it didn't go anywhere. So they couldn't cash in on the Saturday Night Live audience. There was a show I want to mention called Open All Night. It was a sitcom. I swear I thought it lasted longer than it did. But Open All Night aired Saturdays at 8, and it only lasted for 12 episodes. 12 episodes were produced, only 11 aired. There's one that was unaired, but I remember it very well. And it started on November 28th, 1981 to March 5th, 1982 on ABC. There were no reruns at all, just original episodes because it did not fare well at all in the ratings. It starred George DeZunza, who I remember from the TV movie Salem's Lot, one of the first big productions that Stephen King sold as an author for a live action production. And he played a guy who stuck a shotgun in Fred Willard's character's mouth, who was cheating on this guy's wife. And George played the jealous husband. And the shotgun is not loaded, but Fred Willard's character thinks it is. And he's like, put it in your mouth. Suck on it. It just was a brutal scene written by Stephen King. But Open All Night was a sitcom, and it was pretty funny, and I liked it. Bubba Smith was in it, who went on to be in the Police Academy movies. I love Bubba Smith. And it's about an all-night grocery store filled with loonies, really loony characters that shop there and work there. The last episode was titled Death of a Bag Lady, and it was unaired. It never aired, and I'd like to see that. Here's a little bit of the opening credits to Open All Night. Hang on, folks. I am so sorry about this. Still learning this board.
This is the story of Gordon Feaster, born in Ohio the day before Easter. Had a normal childhood, did okay in school. Graduated from Columbus High in 1962. Now he's open all night. Open all night. Went away to college, but he didn't do that good. So the army drafted him and he got sent to Fort Hood. Served a 2-year hitch, never went overseas. Spent a year peeling potatoes and a year copping Z's. Now he's open all night. Open all night. Then old Gordon sort of drifted this way and that. At times he had some money, other times he was flat. He always seemed to manage, so he never saved a cent. Sure, it was a struggle, but he always paid the rent. Now he's open all night.
Yeah.
Open all night. And that takes us up to 1974. And now old Gordon runs a grocery store with a wife named Gretchen who hangs around the house, and her son named Terry by a previous spouse. Gordon sits behind the counter and hawk up to his nose in a dinner and a pickle in a store that's never closed, and he's open all night. Open all night, 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 open all night.
I like that show. And does anyone out there remember that? I got a lot of Facebook comments I better get caught up on real quick, and then we'll continue with our countdown, making some good progress here on the list. I got all sorts of variety coming up with these shows that we thought lasted longer, and some of them are not so well known, and these are just my favorite picks. So there's going to be some that you may remember and some that you don't. Let's see. Alan Sanders. He's a great broadcaster. He says, perfect timing, working on my rental home floors and have you on external speaker. Break a leg. Well, thank you, Alan, for listening. I really appreciate that coming from you. That's an honor. And from Barry King as well. Wesley Millsap says, hey, Chance, checking in from Ackworth. I love to see that. I missed you last week, but you're here now. And let's see any other comments. There's a bunch. It's hard for me to see these comments for some reason. Let me go back real quick. Bosom Buddies was good, says Ditzler Charles. And he mentioned Voyagers, which I'm going to cover later in hour 3. It's starting up. He said, I like the misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. I like the Ropers. Same here. I concur. The Ropers didn't get a fair shake. So thank you for being out there and watching and listening. And I'm going to continue with the count. Now, for some reason, honestly, I can't see the comments like I normally can. And there are some. I can see there's some there. Really bizarre. And Wesley says that the audio and video was messing up towards the beginning of the show. I hope that's not the case, but we'll see. You know, that's the trouble with doing a live show by yourself. Al, where are you, man? I invited you over. I know you had plans and your studio's not working right now, but wish you were here to help me out, but I'm just going to carry on. The show must go on this 2-year anniversary of the Nostalgic Podblast. As we continue, here's a show that I'm sure a lot of you out there remember. It was called Trauma Center. It didn't last long at all. It was on ABC. It only lasted 8 episodes, but it was memorable because Lou Ferrigno was in it after the Incredible Hulk, playing an ambulance driver, a paramedic named Six, and he was in a beard. He spoke. He had lines, and it didn't last long. It was actually a spinoff of Lee Major's show, The Fall Guy. He executive produced and starred in. And I have some of these episodes of Trauma Center on 16 millimeter film uncut, and there's a bunch that are unaired because I think only 10 aired and there 13 were produced. 3 were never aired at all, and it wasn't syndicated because there's not enough episodes even on a weekly basis to air before they have to recycle again. But Trauma Center wasn't bad. It was kind of a cheesy action show, but it had a lot of gory gags in it. Like one lady shoots her husband accidentally in the heart when they're practicing archery in their backyard. She shoots him in the heart. Blood goes everywhere. These guys are golfing on a golf course and they get electrocuted, and one lady's blinded in that lightning bolt strike. There was another gag where there's these dirt bikers on, motorized dirt bikes out on dirt trails, and one guy gets like mowed in half. Like he gets off his bike to take a break, not knowing someone's about to do a jump, and he jumps, and then splash lands right on him and saws him in half. And I have that one on film. But Trauma Center was narrated by William Conrad, who was in Jake, the star of Jake and the Fat Man, the narrator of The Fugitive with David Jansen, and of course Cannon. And he narrated the opening of Trauma Center. I'll just play a couple quick promos, but let me see if there's anything I forgot. Oh, it started September 22nd, 1983, and ended on ABC December 8th, 1983. And it aired Thursday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. And then at the very end, they moved it to 9 p.m. that same night, Thursday night. Wendy Malick was in it, who you know later in Just Shoot Me, the David Spade sitcom. But she was young here as a doctor in the show, and she probably would rather forget Trauma Center. But at the time, I'm sure it was a big break. Alfie Wise is in it. James Naughton is in it. Dorian Harewood, who is in everything to this day. He played one of the doctors. But the problem with Trauma Center was it was up against Magnum PI on CBS and on NBC up against Give Me a Break and Mama's Family. So it had some tough competition, tough time slot. But here's a little promo for Trauma Center, narrated by the great Ernie Anderson.
Hot headlines. Turn Trauma Center inside out.
The next person on their staff that gets their name in the papers is going to be fired.
Mayday. This guy's not gonna have any golden hour.
Trauma Center.
See, those are just brief. I got another one I want to play from Trauma Center because it only lasted 10 episodes. But Lou Ferrigno, I watched it because I love Lou Ferrigno. I'm like, holy crap, it's incredible.
Trapped in a blazing inferno.
Where are you going? Are you crazy? David, get up there!
And the trauma team is their only hope.
6! Don't give up now!
Trauma Center, Thursday.
That's a little bit of the theme from Trauma Center that you could hear in the background. I couldn't find a clean audio bit of the theme for Trauma Center with the narration by William Conrad. Oh, Jesus, sorry about that.
Tonight's movie, Heaven Can Wait, will continue in a moment. Thursday
Please don't let him shoot me.
on Trauma Center.
Mayday. Mayday. This guy's not gonna have any golden hour.
Trauma Center. Then on 9 to 5.
Tonight.
A new fox at the office as the girls on the prowl.
I had to wear it. Everything else is dirty. So's that.
And it's not easy when Sharon's husband spends the night with an old friend.
So? How is Neil's ex-wife?
Thursday on ABC.
That last promo was a show called It's Not Easy with Ken Howard, who was the coach in White Shadow. This was after White Shadow was canceled. That was just a dud night for ABC. That whole lineup was wiped out. 9 to 5 lasted a little bit based on the Dolly Parton hit movie. But the TV show had Sally Struthers in it, and it wasn't very good. Let's see. Now, here's a more recent one that I'm really sad that Fox screwed up, the Fox network. It was called The Cool Kids. And it aired in the 2018 to 2019 season on Fox. It got a terrible night, Friday night. This should have been on Sunday night. It would have lasted a long time, kind of like Murder, She Wrote, with the senior crowd, because that's who it was written for. Actually, written for younger people and older people. That was the beauty of it. It crossed multiple generations with the comedy. And there was one episode. Well, let me tell you who starred in it. But there's one episode with Ed Begley Jr., who wanted to date Vicki Lawrence and did date her in this particular episode. Vicki Lawrence plays someone who joins a retirement community, and there's a clique of 4, and one of the 4 just passed away. And so on her first day there at this retirement community, she sat in this guy's chair who passed away to eat lunch, and the other guys are like, what the hell are you doing? And Martin Mull's in the cast, David Alan Grier, and Leslie Jordan, that little dude he was in Boston Public, which I liked. Not Boston Legal, but by the same guy, David E. Kelly. Boston Public, about a public school in the early 2000s, and he was funny in that. He's been around for years. He's a funny dude, and he plays a little gay guy on this show. The Cool Kids. But getting back to the Ed Begley story, so Vicki Lawrence is dating Ed Begley's character, and she starts suspecting he's the Zodiac Killer. And it turns out he is the Zodiac Killer. It was just really well written, and they brought back some familiar faces like Jamie Farr from MASH and After MASH in a semi-regular role. And they had Patrick Duffy, who was best known to Dallas viewers as Bobby Ewing. He came back, and they had A really good one. Oh, I loved it with John Lovitz, where he played an a-hole star at a convention, like signing autographs, and he's such a jerk. And like you see his true side, like a lot of these celebrities, they always show their ass eventually, and his character did, John Lovitz. But it debuted September 28th, 2018 through May 10th, 2019 on Fox at 8 o'clock. And I just think it would have done better on Sunday night. Here's a funny clip of Gay Sid. That's his character name that Leslie Jordan plays. He plays Sid, and he's trying to seduce Margaret, played by Vicki Lawrence. And let me see if I can get this to go. This is a pretty funny little clip. I love Leslie Jordan. He's funny as hell. He doesn't know how to seduce women.
So I know a man is not supposed to say these things when sitting with a woman these days, but if you really want Jerry's seat, I know a way you can earn it. Through me.
Really? What would I have to do?
Well, man-woman stuff.
I don't know. Why don't you give me the details?
Well, when a man takes a woman and unhooks things and takes liberties with her person. You know the rest.
No, still lost.
He puts his lips on things and his hands go everywhere. And cheese and crackers, don't make me keep saying it.
Well, all right. Why don't we go back to my room and you can show me instead?
No, I think I made myself perfectly clear.
No, I want you to show me. Come on, lover boy. Get up.
It was just a good, funny show. And the dumb thing about that, like I said, it's well written, but it was established that character played by Leslie Jordan as Sid was once married to a woman. So, it didn't make sense for him to be so perplexed as to what to do with a woman, gay or not. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But you know what they should have done? Not only should they have put that on a better night than Friday night at 8, they should have given another chance, and they should have done a show with Vicki Lawrence as Mama. Because right now, Vicki Lawrence is about the age, no offense to Vicki Lawrence. And by the way, she sang the song, what was the song she sang about Georgia? She had a hit song, Vicki Lawrence. She had a singing career, Georgia. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. That's it. But she could have done like I can see it now, a season 2 premiere of The Cool Kids, where Mama split screen. I know it sounds hokey and kind of cliche with a sitcom, but she's so funny. And that character is so beloved. Mama's Family, that would have been a ratings boost, man. Debut season 2 on Sunday night on Fox. That would have been the golden hour of television, or half hour as it were. But I just love that show. Now, here's another bad one of more recent years. BH 90210. Oh my gosh. They brought back Beverly Hills 90210, and it was so poorly executed, lasted 6 episodes. And the premise was, I've talked about it in the previous Podblast, that it's like a reality show. And like the actors playing themselves as actors are trying to sell the show Beverly Hills 90210 to a network. And it just was so bad. The only good thing about it is they brought back Shannon Doherty, who I liked, who kind of gets a bad rap for being a bad girl back in the early 90s when she was written off the show. But they brought her back. That was the only good thing. And, we hope she battles cancer and beats it, because she's in real life, Shannon Doherty is suffering from cancer, and it's been in remission, and it came back. It comes and goes, and we wish her well. But BH 90210 was terrible. And I thought it had a conflict of interest because Gabrielle Gutierrez, who plays Andrea, is now the president of the Screen Actors Guild to this day. And there was some controversy about her reelection. I don't know if it's true or not, about voter fraud out in Hollywood. Matthew Modine, who was running against her, alleges that. And he was best known as the star of the movie Vision Quest, Matthew Modine, but he was running. And by the way, Ken Howard, who I mentioned from White Shadow, was once the head of the Screen Actors Guild, as was Patty Duke in the past, in the 80s. And it's just like an honorary thing. But I thought it was weird. I thought she should have recused herself, Andrea, from being in BH 90210. But I guess you had to have her because she was an integral character in the Beverly Hills 90210 universe. And I do like that show. I'm guilty of liking Beverly Hills 90210, and I've always liked soap operas. I'm going to do a show about primetime and daytime soap soon for the ladies and some of the dudes out there that watch some, because there were some interesting storylines, and I'll do that in the future. But I want to talk about another sitcom with some really cute girls that I loved, and it didn't last long, hence the theme of today's 2-year anniversary Podblast, shows that didn't last long or that seemed that lasted longer. Double Trouble starred the twins Liz and Jean Sagal, easy for me to say, who is the sisters of Katie Sagal from Married with Children. And this began on NBC on April 4th, 1984, and it ran till August 21st, 1985. You can find glimpses of it on YouTube, by the way. Double Trouble. I always look for it in syndication because I loved it when it was in prime time. I just loved those girls. They were cute and funny and fun to watch. It aired Wednesday nights from 9:30 to 10 on NBC, but then a month later, it was moved from 8 to 8:30 on Wednesday night. See, that confuses the viewers. You know, it creates confusion, and back then, all you had was a TV guide, and most people didn't even buy that. You know, you didn't really know when the show was on that you fell in love with. And I know I couldn't find it. I was like, what the hell's going on here? So shortly after it started, they moved it from 8 to 8:30 Wednesday nights, and then they moved it to Saturday night from 8:30 to 9, and that just killed the ratings on a Saturday night. NBC. For summer reruns, though, the crazy thing is they moved it back where it began to Wednesday night from 9:30 to 10. But it had already been axed. That was for summer reruns. It had already been canceled. So another stupid network decision. But the last new episode of Double Trouble aired March 30th, 85. Here's a little bit of the theme or the opening to Double Trouble. Double Trouble. That's how the theme went. And I don't like those electronic drums of the 80s. Hated that. A lot of shows did that back in those days. Such a cheesy sound. Barry King of BK and the Air joked. He goes, it was probably a budget cut. They didn't want to pay a real drummer to do that. But I hate that. They were good looking. They were cute. And I liked that show. And it's too bad the network monkeyed with the time slot that it aired. Here's another good one that should have been a hit show called Partners in Crime. Here's why it should have been a hit. It starred Lonnie Anderson from WKRP in Cincinnati with Linda Carter, Wonder Woman. What a great pairing. Had a bad time slot, though. It only lasted 13 episodes from September 22nd, 1984 to December 29th, 1984. They put it at Saturday night, on Saturday night at 9 p.m., and then they moved it Saturday night at 10 p.m. And guess what it was up against? Here's why it didn't succeed. It was up against The Love Boat, the powerhouse on ABC, and Mike Hammer on CBS. Someone in chat mentioned in the comments Mike Hammer, and that was a good show with Stacy Keach. But that's why it didn't make it. And I want to play a little bit of the opening to Partners in Crime where Linda Carter speaks. Shit, it's in mono.
This tall brunette, born with a silver spoon in her mouth, was Private Eye Raymond Dashiell Caulfield's first wife. This streetwise blonde and I have only two things in common. We were both married to the same man, and we both divorced him. We met for the first time at his funeral. Are you ready for this? He left us his mansion, mortgaged to the hilt, and the Caulfield Detective Agency. And how do we manage? We call the cops a lot.
Here in Atlanta, there was an insert in the Journal-Constitution called TV Week, and there was a cover shot of these two ladies from back then, and it just looked like a great, great show. But I never could figure out what night it was on. But I was watching Love Boat. Eileen, I can't even pronounce her name. Eileen Eckhart was in the cast too of this short-lived show. She had been in Trauma Center as well. Another dud. She had back-to-back duds in those days, but that was Partners in Crime. You know, it would have done better. They should have made them lesbians. I'm sorry. I'm a guy. I think they should have been lesbians. Can you imagine Lonnie Anderson and Linda Carter in TV-type situations? Okay? They could have done it tastefully. I think that would have boosted the ratings. They should have had them be lesbians in that. But like I said, it only lasted 13 episodes. Here's another one I will mention. What's Happening Now? They brought back the What's Happening kids. And in this one, rerun, God, I miss Fred Berry. He died too young. I love Fred Berry as rerun, but he plays a used car salesman in this. And actually, I'm going to cheat here. It lasted 3 years, okay? And I said these shows are all shows that lasted 2 years or less, but I love this updated version of the theme. And it was by Henry Mancini, who had done the Pink Panther music. Let me just play this. I just love this. Call me crazy. I don't care. I love this theme, this tune. So catchy. I love that. And you know what? I'm going to play the original season 2 version of the What's Happening theme. And this is the episode with the Doobie Brothers, but I'm just going to play the theme because I love that organ. And the bouncing of the basketball sound. Bow, 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 bow. Come on, board. Work with me. Here we go. This should be it. God dang. Well, maybe I won't play it. But I love that theme by Henry Mancini and that cast. I love that show so much. What's Happening? And the Doobie Brothers episode is one I'll always remember. It's one of the best ones where Rerun sneaks into a Doobie Brothers concert with a tape recorder. There we go. And the tape recorder falls out in front of the Doobie Brothers front row, and they get in trouble. That's a great thing.
Will somebody help me with this? There you go.
They're setting up his tape recorder to record the Doobie Brothers.
Okay, the tape recorder's all set. How do I look? Like the Bionic Mountain.
Well, Rerun, don't move around too much, man. The tape recorder might fall off, all right? Yeah, but what if I have to go to, you know what?
I have to go to the bathroom. I have to pee. I'll be right back.
Turn the thing off. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I don't care.
Guys, you all be serious. Let me try. Help! Shh. There's nobody in here.
Boy, you better open that door.
Come on in. I didn't know it was you.
Yeah, you all ready yet?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, wait a minute, man. The tape recorder is sticking out.
Oh, wait, we'll fix it. We'll be right out.
Okay, hurry up. Fly me to the moon.
Well, you all set, Rerun?
Yeah, just 1 second. Dwayne, hand me that popcorn over in the bag. Okay, now hand me the sodas and the candy bars.
Rerun, why are you hiding all this food?
Because it said on the back of the ticket, no food allowed. I don't want to break the law.
Hey, hi, Rod, Dwayne, Dee, Rerun. You guys sure got good seats. How'd you do that?
Don't blame me.
It wasn't my fault.
Just lucky, I guess.
Yeah, you look like the Wheel of Fortune.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Doobie Brothers.
I better stop it. I'll get dinged for a song copyright. I don't want to do that. Here on funky Dixieland, pretty mama come and take me by the hand. So, moving on with our list, we're kind of jumping around the timeline here. Kolchak the Night Stalker. Only 1 season, and it was the pre-runner to The X-Files. And it starred Darren McGavin. Years before he was in A Christmas Story as the father. But Kolchak the Night Stalker began on September 13th, 1974, and it ran through August 30th, 1975. Like many other shows, it started as a TV movie of the week. In fact, it began as The Night Stalker on January 11th, 1972, movie of the week, and then a year later, The Night Strangler aired on January 16th, 1973, and then 21-hour episodes followed. Aired Friday night on ABC from 10 to 11 for the first 3 months. Then, in typical fashion, the network moved it earlier on Saturday night from 8 to 9. Now, it was opposite the CBS Friday night movie and Policewoman, starring Angie Dickinson on NBC. Tough competition. The last new episode of Kolchak aired on March 28th, 1975. And that final episode was titled The Sentry. Quick promo for The Night Stalker, just because it has pop culture significance. Let's see here if I can get it to go. I'm sorry about all the problems I'm having with technical stuff.
Darren McGavin stars as Kolchak, the Night Stalker. And now, Darren McGavin in The Night Stalker.
Weird opening where he's whistling. He's walking into like an office here, pouring a cup of coffee, and he sits down in front of a typewriter. Let's go play the whole thing. I just give you a taste if you haven't heard of this show. Anyway, Darren McGavin also was the original Oscar Goldman in the $6 Million Man first TV movie of the week called The Moon in the Desert. And then he was replaced by Richard Anderson in the second $6 Million Man movie titled Wine, Women, and War. And he utters his first lines of, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. But that's Darren McGavin in Kolchak the Night Stalker. There was another short-lived sci-fi show around this time, and it was called The Invisible Man, which, of course, had been around since the 50s, and in movies before that, Universal monster movies. But The Invisible Man started as a 90-minute movie of the week on NBC on May 6th, 1975. It became a weekly series on September 8th, 1975, and it only ran until January 19th, 1976. It aired Mondays from 8 to 9 p.m., up against Mary Tyler Moore spinoffs, the Mary Tyler Moore Show spinoffs from MTM Productions, Rhoda and Phyllis. Stiff competition. Those were ratings winners, baby. And well-written shows and beloved shows with the beloved characters. You know, Phyllis. God, Cloris Leachman passed away not too long ago. Anyway, The Invisible Man was up against those two shows on CBS, and then Barbary Coast on ABC, which starred William Shatner. That was another, like, short-lived show. I won't get into it. I will later when we get around to William Shatner and another Podblast or Star Trek or whatever. I'll cover that later, but not today. Barbary Coast and ABC was up against The Invisible Man. Now, The Invisible Man starred Scottish actor David McCallum, who you'll know from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., perhaps. And he was in a great Outer Limits episode, The Sixth Finger, where he plays a man who's experimented on into what man will be like 1 million years into the future. And he gets a mutated sixth finger and a big cranium, and he just wants to keep going forward. But I digress. But Outer Limits is a short-lived show, lasted a season and a half, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Facebook comments, Jeff Logan says, I love the longer format. Thank you, Jeff. And I mentioned you earlier and towards the beginning when I talked about Space 1999 and Dragon's Domain, the episode that you said caused you nightmares when you were a kid, and you never wanted to watch that show again. The one that's like Alien, with that monster that's scooping bodies up into it, and then spits out the corpse, and it's like, it's disgusting. Even to this day, the corpse is like just a bunch of bones and melted flesh. So The Invisible Man, I'm not going to play a clip because the theme is not very good. It's not very memorable. But David McCallum is still acting. He's in NCIS and NCIS New Orleans on CBS. Melinda Fee also starred in The Invisible Man, who I know best a few years after this as a fembot, Tammy, in a season 3 episode of The Bionic Woman, which aired in September 1977, called Fembots in Las Vegas, parts 1 and 2. And also, before that, she was in a very silly, terrible episode of Lost in Space titled Space Circus in 1966, in September 1966. Might have been October 66. It was the 5th episode that aired of Lost in Space for season 2, the first color season. It was awful. Now, again, no clip, because I think this premise of The Invisible Man was best handled in the movie Hollow Man, starring Kevin Bacon. I just love that. I thought the concept was better executed, and it was a great R-rated thriller. Hollow Man. Moving on. There's a really cool short-lived show, lasted only 1 year, called The Immortal. The Immortal. Not to be confused with the 1976 Marvel comic book by Jack Kirby, and the basis of the Marvel movie. No, this was based on the book by James Gunn, The Immortal. It began as a TV movie of the week on September 30th, 1969, then became a series a year later, beginning on September 24th, 1970. And it ran on Thursday nights from 10 to 11 on ABC until September 8th, 1971. But the last new episode aired January 14th, 1971, titled Brother's Keeper. The time slot for the reruns of The Immortal, May through the end of September 71, was moved to Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30 against the Dean Martin Show on NBC and the second hour of the CBS Thursday Night Movie. The Immortal series starred Christopher George, as did the movie, and he was married to Linda Day, who was a very beautiful woman at the time. And it also starred Carol Lindley, who was a former Playmate, and she was in an episode of The Invaders I'll talk about later, called The Believers, which was a critical episode of season 2 of The Invaders. Anyway, Carol Lindley was in it, but Christopher George was an American hero. He was the star, and sadly, he died late at night on November 28th, 1983, of a heart attack. Probably due to Linda Day. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to be disrespectful to this man, because he was an American hero. I'll talk about it right now, explaining. He had been in the Rat Patrol that Barry mentioned in a comment that I'd read on the air. He'd been in the Rat Patrol, and in that show, he was injured in a set vehicle rollover incident in 1967. And as he healed, some scar tissue developed on his heart improperly. He died of a heart attack at 52 years old, but get this is really cool. He lied about his age so he could enlist in the Marines at age 17 in Jacksonville, Florida. And he had extensive military service, and he was honored in 2009 for his military service. He was a great guy, and that was a very interesting show. I want to play a little bit. This explains what The Immortal's all about. I don't think I've explained it. I want to save it for the clip because I couldn't do the justice this clip can do. So here's The Immortal.
This man has a singular advantage over other men. Ben Richards is immune to every known disease, including old age. Periodic transfusions of his blood can give other men a second, a third lifetime, perhaps more. Find Ben Richards!
The effects of a transfusion are only temporary. I must therefore control Ben Richards' life permanently.
He's the most valuable man in the world, but he's no good to me dead.
His brother may have the same kind of blood. We've got to find him before Richards does.
If you had $1 million blood, where would you hide?
I didn't ask for this. I was a test driver. I liked the job. One day the doctor told me I had some kind of special blood. I don't understand it. But I know this. Everything they're offering, I don't want. I gotta live free.
Ben Richards will live longer than anyone has ever lived. But a transfusion to the wrong man could make him a prisoner for all time. And so he runs from the hunters, the human hounds who would cage him.
The Immortal, and it's available on DVD. I bought the set. Very, very good show. Here's another show, Then Came Bronson. 26 episodes on NBC, aired from September 17th, 1969 to September 9th, 1970, Wednesdays from 10 to 11, starred Michael Parks. In the story, this follows, following the suicide of his best friend, big city reporter Jim Bronson pondered the meaning of his life. He gave up his job, got rid of his possessions, and left town on his deceased pal's motorcycle in search of a more meaningful existence. The show went nowhere, unfortunately. The last new episode aired on April Fool's Day, 1970. And it was up against the mega successful Hawaii Five-0, which aired from 1968 to 1980 on CBS. And it was against the second hour of the ABC Movie of the Week. I'm running out of time. I guess I'll play a little bit of the opening to the series Then Came Bronson from 1969.
Taking a trip?
What's that?
Taking a trip.
Yeah.
Where to?
Oh, I don't know. Wherever I end up, I guess.
Well, I wish I was you.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, hang in there.
Hang in there. Takes off on his motorcycle. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's shift gears to a little bit of animated action as we wind things down.
Here comes Speed Racer, he's a demon on wheels. He's a demon and he's gonna be chasing after someone. He's gaining on you, so you better look alive. He's busy running 7 of the powerful Mach 5. And when the odds are against him and there's dangerous work to do, bet your life's eraser, see it through. Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go! He's often flying as he guns a car around the track. He's jamming down the pedal like he's never coming back. Adventure's waiting just ahead! Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go!
It always seemed like that lasted longer than it did. There's only 52 episodes. It was syndicated. I saw it after school on WTCG and WTBS in the 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock hour, along with the Flintstones and the Space Giants that I talk about a lot. The Space Giants also was produced in Japan along with Speed Racer, but it was live action, meaning real actors and real action. 52 episodes, started in Tokyo, Japan, July 4th, 1966, but it aired on WTCG, WTBS from 77 to 81 after the success of Star Wars. Ted Turner picked it up, but actually had been syndicated as Monsters from Outer Space starting in 1972 in America in smaller stations and syndication. I know it aired in like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for one. I wanted to play this in our last episode's Pod Blast from last week, but I ran out of time. Just the last scene after Rodak has been killed. He's the villain. He wants to take over the Earth. And these robots are sent to Earth. One of them is 50 feet tall, and he can transform from a robot to a rocket. And Rodak is destroyed. And this is kind of sad to me. You're going to laugh. Hang on. This is where the heroes leave the Earth. There's a human boy named Miko who's given a whistle to summon these robots that can transform into rockets. There's 3 of them. Goldar is 50 feet tall. Silvar, who is his wife, who's normal size, makes no sense, I know. And Gam, the robot rocket boy, who's Miko's age. So, Rodak has been destroyed. Here we go.
The monster was Rodak.
There actually is a last episode that ties up the storyline. And good triumphs over evil.
I will explain. Then tell the whole world which is waiting for the news. Rodak summoned Kono to Earth, a monster unlike any of the others. Kono was the strongest and most dangerous. But even Rodak couldn't trust this monster, for it was his last. Rodak's hope of conquering Earth was now or never, and he knew it. Rodak therefore entered the monster's body to add his own strength and intelligence. So when I destroyed Kono, I destroyed Rodak. Huh? What's that?
This is the creator of the robot speaking. He's an old man.
Methuselah. It's time to go.
I'm here.
He appears in the sky on a rainbow.
I don't understand.
Right now he's appearing. You see a rainbow, and then the old man's on top of the rainbow.
Look, there you are.
Time to say goodbye.
Is right. It's time for us to go. The Earth is safe now. We are needed no longer.
On behalf of all on Earth, thank you, Goldar.
I'm going to miss you, Miko. We'll always be great friends.
Dan, we must go.
And they transform into rockets
Yes,
and
Mother.
go off into space.
We'll meet again someday, Miko. Goodbye.
Take care.
Take care.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goldar!
Thanks again. Goldar! Award!
That's how it ended. I know it's a silly show with silly effects, but I just love that damn show and still do to this day. I'll never grow up. But it lasted 52 episodes. Seems like it ran longer. And then Spectre Man replaced it on WTBS, which is another show, but it was produced in like the early 70s in Japan, heavily influenced by Planet of the Apes, Dr. Gory, same kind of thing. He wanted to take over the Earth, same thing as Rodak the villain and Space Giants, except it was like an environmental awareness show where they always had a message about fighting against pollution. And it too had a final ending. where the villain is destroyed. So they tied up all the loose ends. Now, a guy on YouTube has remastered with the Blu-rays released in Japan with no English tracks on YouTube, but he dubbed English tracks from old Betamax and VHS recordings from WTCG and WTBS. But you know what? I have some of the lost English tracks he doesn't have on a film reel of outtakes of scenes that were cut by TBS, including like little trailers and actual scenes from the show. I could help this guy. But he's on YouTube, and just this year, he put all 52 episodes of The Space Giants in perfect visual quality on YouTube, and I can't even pronounce the name of his YouTube channel. Just look up The Space Giants if you care to, if you remember it or want to learn what it's about on YouTube. Oh, I'm running out of time, so let's get to the heavy hitters. Battlestar Galactica debuted September 17th, 1978 on ABC TV against the Emmy Awards, and it smashed the ratings of the Emmy Awards. And it ran through August 17th, 1980 as Galactica 1980. I want to play a quick promo that ABC did, and this will go make me tear up probably because it's just so sentimental and nostalgic.
The ABC Sunday Night Movie presents the most spectacular space adventure ever filmed. Transport yourself in time to a star system far beyond our own galaxy.
Core systems transferring control to probe craft. Launch when ready.
Battlestar Galactica, a saga of a star world. I got him on the left. I got him on the right.
That is precision flying.
For 1,000 years, a race of alien machines has been bent on destruction of the human race.
They hate us with every fiber of their existence.
And now their evil plans may become reality.
It's dangerous around here.
Why do those people want to hurt us? What did we do to them?
It's not what we did to them. It's what they fear we could do.
Join the last remnants of the human race in their quest for a new world.
13th colony. This other world.
Jane Seymour.
Where is it and what's it called?
Earth. And be there for the ultimate confrontation.
Enemy closing 30 microns.
But if you're wrong...
25 microns.
I'm not wrong.
15 microns.
Cylons lured me into their deception once.
Closing in 5 microns.
Never again.
Prepare yourself for Battlestar Galactica.
Remember that? The Cylon sound effect? Which executive producer Glenn Larson brought back in Knight Rider. Kit, the front of the car, had the same sound and the same red light that would go from side to side. But I sure love Battlestar Galactica, and it also got screwed by network incompetence in terms of scheduling. It always was Sunday night. That's when it debuted, and I love the phony profanity, like frack for the F word and Felgerkarp for bullshit. They had fabricated, and it was based, actually, it was pitched by Glenn Larson, executive producer back in the late 60s as Adam's Ark, like Noah's Ark in space. And the networks passed on it because Star Trek had just gone off the air. So it was kind of a ripoff of Star Wars, but if not for the success of Star Wars, it never would have been greenlit. And I remember that was the first time I got to stay up till 11 o'clock when I was like 7 years old. I begged my parents to let me stay up and watch the end of this 3-hour epic movie. So I want to read a little article. It's kind of sad from a magazine. God, I'm running out of time. About a kid that committed suicide, not to bring the Podblast down. This is from the Associated Press from 1979. It's called The Boy Who Lived and Died for a TV Program. St. Paul, Minnesota. The parents of a 15-year-old boy who jumped 200 feet to his death from a bridge after the television program Battlestar Galactica was canceled say the boy's whole life had been wrapped up in that space show. Quote, I hope we never see it on TV again because it would just crush us, said Dawn Seidel, the boy's stepmother, said Saturday. Services for the boy, Eddie Seidel Jr., were held Friday. He jumped to his death early Wednesday morning after telling police from his perch on the high bridge railing that he was upset because Battlestar Galactica had been dropped by the ABC network. Quote, I talked about suing ABC or doing something, unquote, Mrs. Seidel said, but my husband said to just leave things like they are and not to make a big hassle out of it. I know it's not their fault because they had the program, unquote. Eddie was deeply absorbed with the space subjects. His room, Mrs. Seidel said, was filled with posters, magazines, plastic models, and other paraphernalia about Battlestar Galactica. Quote, they made a lot of money off him, unquote, she said. They bought, quote, he bought everything put on the market. He also took tape recordings of all of the shows, unquote. Eddie's world was wrapped up in the programs that he viewed in his own bedroom on a TV set he bought. His father, Edward Seidel, described Eddie as somewhat brilliant boy. He probably was autistic, I don't know. A somewhat brilliant boy who could not find enough in life to keep him interested. The father said that about 4 years ago, after he learned Eddie had been sniffing gas with friends, he sent him to a psychiatrist. Quote, the psychiatrist said he was just kind of bored with life, that there was nothing here for him to excel in, Seidel said. Quote, there was no real challenge here on this earth, unquote. His stepmother said that he got B's and B minus pluses in school. What? B minus pluses, I don't know what that means. Anyway, his stepmother said he got B's and B minus pluses in school and an occasional A, but that he was mostly bored with classes. Seidel said his son had come home from his job at a as a supermarket stock boy about 5 p.m. Tuesday, apparently in good spirits. The boy went to his room to watch television. The family did not see him the rest of the night. When his 19-year-old sister, Crystal, passed Eddie's door later that night, she found a note. His last will and testament. He had gone off on his motorbike. He told his parents in the note that they would find his body under the high bridge, a half-mile long, 2-lane link between downtown St. Paul and the suburb of West St. Paul. The Seidels arrived there about 10 minutes after Eddie had jumped and landed on the ground beside the Mississippi River. Seidel said that when Eddie learned last spring that Battlestar Galactica was being canceled, he asked ABC to keep it on. The last rerun of the program was shown August 5th. The tragedy is, Galactica 1980 would come back months later. The moral of the story is, never, as Queen sang about, don't try suicide, you're just gonna hate it. I'm not making light of this. There's a song called Don't Try Suicide by Queen, and I mean it. I mean, there's always a better tomorrow. So no matter how depressed you get, there's always a better tomorrow. Before I run out of time completely, I want to mention the Invaders. Anyone watching on YouTube or Facebook can see I'm wearing an Invaders t-shirt, black with white letters. Anyway, Invaders lasted 2.5 seasons. It was a winter replacement series, started January 10th, 1967, towards the latter half of the 1966 to 1967 season by QM Productions, who had the hit Fugitive show on at the time. There were 43 episodes produced. It aired Tuesday nights from 8:30 to 9:30 on ABC. In that time slot from January 10th, 1967 to January 1968. Then they moved it from 10 to 11 Tuesday nights, starting in January 68 till September 1968, when the last episode aired, which was a rerun. It was up against the Red Skelton Hour on CBS and the second half of the Jerry Lewis Show. And it also was up against the start of the NBC Tuesday night movie, The Invaders. Check out the Nostalgic Podblast 4, not on YouTube, that Al and I did on QM Productions, The Fugitive and The Invaders. And there's tons of clips, tons of interviews. It's on Apple. It's anywhere you can find your fine podcasts. But we've already covered that subject. I want to also talk about Project UFO by Jack Webb. Jack Webb from, of course, Dragnet. This was really cool, and it lasted 2 years. I remember watching it on Sunday night, and then the network moved it to Thursdays, which would explain why I never knew what happened to that show. But Project UFO started Sundays from 8 to 9 p.m., and then season 2, they moved it to Thursdays at 8 on NBC against the Waltons on CBS, and Mork and Mindy and What's Happening on ABC. I want to read a little bit about Project UFO before I run out of time. What was cool about Project UFO is these were real stories. Jack Webb applied his highly successful drama documentary technique to the unlikely subject of unidentified flying objects, i.e. flying saucers, in this 1978 series. To prepare the series, Webb spent 8 months poring over the files of real-life U.S. Air Force investigation into UFOs, Project Blue Book, which had been disbanded in 1969. Ooh, same as the year UFO was produced that we talked about at the top of the show. Many of the sightings had turned out to be mistaken or simply fraudulent, but about 30% remained unexplained. And it was those that Webb dramatized in this series. Regulars were Major Jake Gatlin and Sergeant Harry Fitz, Project Blue Book stolid investigators who traveled across the country interviewing people who had reported seeing UFOs. Some of the stories verged on the character studies of these people, but there was always a certain amount of hardware seen, including vivid recreations of the flying saucers and spacemen that people had claimed seeing. Off-screen narration reinforced the series' appearance of authenticity. Major Gatlin was replaced in the fall of '78 by Captain Ben Ryan as Project Blue Book's chief. Libby was Gatlin and later Ryan's secretary. Colonel William T. Coleman, who had headed the real-life Project Blue Book, was the producer of the series. The truth is out there. That was a great show. Project UFO. And what was cool is the episode titles would be like Sighting 4014 or Sighting 4014. That was based on real reports. Started February 19th, 1978 and ended July 19th, 1978. So it lasted about a year and a half. So as we wind down, I don't have a clip from Project UFO. I want to talk about V, the series. It continued the mini-series V about the lizards that are taking over the Earth, continuing on with UFO talk here. But the series based on V and V, the Final Battle, the mega successful mini-series that NBC aired in 1983. Yeah, 82 and 83. Gosh. The series debuted October 26, 1984 to July 5th, 85 at NBC, Friday nights at 8, when everyone was at the high school football game. Then NBC moved it Friday night from 9 to 10 while everyone's still at the high school football game. It was stupid scheduling. It was up against the Dukes of Hazzard on CBS and Benson and Webster on ABC. Then, when it was moved to 9 p.m., it was against the ratings powerhouse Dallas on CBS and Hawaiian Heat on ABC. Here's a little promo for the series premiere of V. And I have this on 16mm film.
Coming soon to NBC, the biggest stars in blockbuster movies and an out-of-this-world series. The battle has been won, but the war is about to begin. The visitors return, and nothing's going to stop them. Prepare for V, the series. Diana's back to settle her score with Donovan and the world. This time, she's mad.
How perceptive.
Diana has special plans for Donovan to possess him, body and soul. Diana has another target, Elizabeth. But the star child is about to undergo a metamorphosis, which will startle the universe.
Whatever this process is she's going through, we have to let it run its course.
Will she become one of them? All the suspense, all the action, all the romance of the miniseries.
Charming idea.
The visitors are back, and they're here to stay. Don't miss the premiere of V, the series. Born to save lives.
God bless you, Doc.
I went over. My gosh, I'm over 3 hours. Oh, jeez. I am so sorry. Meant to keep it to 3 hours, but I've got to continue on. Might as well. Here's a little bit also of the opening of V, the opening credits of the second half of season 1. I like this
They
narration.
arrived in 50 motherships, offering their friendship and advanced technology to Earth. Skeptics
critical of the visitors, Mike Donovan and Juliette Parrish infiltrated their ranks and soon discovered some startling secrets.
Those drums.
They're shipping food.
Starring in alphabetical order, Jane Badler as Diana. You know who else is in the cast? Robert Englund, otherwise known as Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, as Willie, the friendly alien. And Faye Grant. She was beautiful. And the Beastmaster himself, Mark Singer.
The resistance is all that stands between us and the visitors.
Yeah, right on. So that was V, and it only lasted one. Again, network incompetence with the scheduling. It never should have been on Friday night, on football night for high schools. Never. Are you kidding? These were the kids that were growing up that had seen the miniseries in middle school. Now they're in high school, man. Know your audience, for God's sakes. So disappointing. But I loved it, and it ended with a cliffhanger sort of resolution where there's a star child. She's half alien, half human. She was born remember that the lizard baby that died? There were twins, and there was one that was human looking, and she goes into like a cocoon and comes out fully grown and naked. And Cook was this actor's name who played the grown-up Elizabeth, and she wound up marrying a Celestial Seasonings tea rich dude, like a heir or something to that fortune, and she never acted again. She did a Friday the 13th movie. Jennifer Cook, she played Elizabeth. But the end of V, they always wanted the star child, the aliens. Towards the end, it kind of ended almost like it was going to end peacefully, where there was like a supreme leader, and you never saw him. You just heard this voice, and it was kind of cool. Like the last shot, he goes, "Come, Elizabeth." I can't do it. Like there was a reverb to it. It just sounded really cool. "Come along, Elizabeth." And she goes up to the mothership, and she's going to be taking in a shuttle like to the home planet. And so ostensibly to end the conflict, Diana was the villain who wanted war, and the leader was benevolent, supposedly. So anyway, that's V and how that ended. And the network pulled it. They did 19 episodes. It was a 22 episode order, and they canceled it short. And they were going to do like a 3-part final story that never was produced because the network aired V, the series, on football night, Friday night, and then monkeyed with the time slot, moving it from 8 to 9, blah, 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 blah. They effed up. I want to talk about Cover Up. Cover Up was a show, only lasted a year and a half, starring, not even a year and a half, what am I saying, starring Jennifer O'Neill and John Eric Hexum. And he died due to an accident on the set of the show with a blank, but we'll get to that in a minute. On October 12th, 1984, the cast and crew of Cover Up were filming the 7th episode of the series titled Golden Opportunity on Stage 17 of the 20th Century Fox lot. One of the scenes filmed that day called for Hexum's character to load bullets into a .44 Magnum handgun. So he was provided with a functional gun and blanks. When the scene did not play as the director wanted it to in the master shot, there was a delay in filming. Hexum became restless and impatient during the delay and began playing around to lighten the mood. He had unloaded all but one blank round, spun it, and simulating Russian roulette, he pulled the revolver to his right temple and pulled the trigger, apparently unaware of the danger. Bam! He was dead right there. Blanks use paper or plastic wadding to seal gunpowder into the cartridge, and this wadding is propelled from the barrel of the gun with enough force to cause injury if the weapon is fired within a few feet of the body, particularly a vulnerable spot like a temple of your head, such as the temple or the eye. At a close enough range, the effect of the powder gases is a small explosion. Though although the paper wadding in the blank that Hexam discharged did not penetrate his skull, there was enough blunt force trauma to shatter a quarter-sized piece of his skull and propel the pieces of his skull into his brain, causing massive hemorrhaging. Hemorrhaging. God, can't pronounce it. Isn't that terrible? He was really a handsome star. He would have been a huge star had he survived and not been fooling around on the set. Here's the theme to cover up, and it's a cover of a song, I Need a Hero, from, I think, Footloose, the movie. Let me play this. Cover up. It didn't last long. Or not. But John Hexam, God bless him, and he had been in Voyagers, and I will cover Voyagers. Here we go. You've heard it. I'm not going to play a bad cover of a bad song, but he died on the set. Let me see here. Voyagers. Oh my gosh, I skipped Voyagers. That aired October 3rd, 1982 to July 31st, 83. It was a time travel history show with Mino Palouse, the older brother of Solio Moon Fry from Punky Brewster, another two-season short-lived show that seems to have run forever. But Voyagers ended July 31st, 1983. It aired Sundays from 7 to 8 p.m. And the problem was, it was up against 60 Minutes, which every kid's parent wanted to watch on CBS. That's before the internet, you know. That's when, I know my folks loved 60 Minutes. Everybody did that were adults at that time. So, here's the opening to Voyagers. I didn't care. I didn't like it much.
Travel through time to help history along. Give it a push where it's needed. When the Omni's red, it means history's wrong. Our job's to get everything back on track.
Gonna fall asleep.
Green light, kid. We did it.
They needed a sexy woman in that show. They really did. I remember there's one called like Otherworld. I'm up too loud. My levels are all off. But that was Voyagers. And a lot of people like it. And a lot of people in chat, like Ditzler Charles, is I'm sorry. I don't mean any offense. We all have our favorites. I'm sure you hate things that I like that I've talked about today. And I'm sorry I went over. My gosh. I don't know what I'm going to do about Fistful of Radio. I guess it'll just get cut off because I have a 3-hour time slot there. And we are well over 3 hours here. But I am getting close to the end of what I had. Here's another cool show, Tour of Duty. This is my second and final cheat because it really ran 3 seasons. And I said I was going to keep this to shows that lasted 1 or 2 seasons. But Tour of Duty was awesome. It debuted September 24th, 1987 and ran until April 28th, 1990. And Tour of Duty was an American military drama television series based on the events of the Vietnam War. It was broadcast on CBS. The series ran for 3 seasons, as I said, from September 24th, 1987 to April 28th, 1990, for a total of 58 one-hour episodes. The show was created by Steve Duncan and L. Travis Clark, and the show follows an American infantry platoon on a tour of duty during the Vietnam War. It was the first television series to regularly show Americans in combat in South Vietnam. Had great music, too, by the way, and was one of several similarly themed series to be produced in the wake of the acclaimed Oliver Stone film Platoon from 1986. The series won an Emmy Award in 1988 for outstanding sound mixing for a drama series, and was nominated again in 1989 and 1990. Play a little bit of the opening of Tour of Duty. It was a really cool show. Lee Majors was in a little bit of it. One of my favorite tough guy action actors of the past and present. Music. The drum beat, it's like taps. Well, not like taps, but that military drum. Patriotic. Taps is sad. That's, of course, the bugle. Now, more modern, I want to mention WandaVision on another note. Only one season, 9 episodes. I thought it was fantastic. I'll play a little bit of the trailer and then we'll move on. But WandaVision on Disney Plus was really good. Even if you don't like Marvel superheroes and Marvel stuff, I think you'd like it. But don't listen to the naysayers that said, oh, it's like a 50s sitcom. It's black and white. You got to watch the whole thing. You've got to do like Barry King of BK on the Air says, trust Marvel. So far, they've not made a mistake in terms of the Disney Plus shows. Loki is great, off to a great start. There's 6 episodes of that, and that drops every Wednesday on Disney Plus. Don't mean to sound like a commercial for Disney Plus here, but WandaVision was fantastic. It's a 1-season wonder. It's going to lead into Doctor Strange 2 in terms of Wanda the Scarlet Witch's storyline, supposedly. Can't wait for that. Play a little bit of this trailer for WandaVision.
Heavenly shades of night are falling. It's twilight time.
Wanda and Vision, aren't we a 5-pair?
This is our home now. I want us to fit in.
Oh, this is gonna be a gas!
Where did you two move from? How long have you been married? And why don't you have children yet?
Our story.
Ask that question.
I think what my wife means to say is that we moved from...
Moved from where?
Why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? Mind your own frickin' business!
Oh, Arthur, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Exactly. Stop it. Stop it.
Is this really happening?
Like days of old, lighting the spark of love that fills me.
Am I dead?
No. Why would you think that?
Because you are.
Each day I pray for evening just to be.
We are an unusual couple, you know.
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
streaming now on Disney Plus, and it's really, really good. You don't need to know a thing going in. Check it out. It's really good. Now, let's see if I have anything else. Oh, well, it is our 2-year birthday celebration today of the Nostalgic Podblast, and we appreciate everyone being in here for this, whether you're listening live or after the fact, or watching live or after the fact. But I still need to announce just a couple things. I'll call it my one more thing. This is just a little rant. I collect 16 millimeter films for movie projectors, and these are just like they sound. They're film prints. And in the film collecting community, they're what I call film snobs. And what these guys do is they complain about the color. And of course, a film print with good color is desirable, meaning the color hasn't faded pink or reddish. But my God, there's things on film you can't find in any other format. If you're going to bitch about the color, why don't you collect Blu-rays or just stream? It's frickin' film. I mean, it's one thing if you read a description, for instance, on eBay that's not accurately described in terms of the color. Fair enough. But if you're going to be such a nitpicker about color, you should probably be in another hobby. You probably should not be collecting film. That's just my little rant. Oh, you hear that buzz? It just went away. Jeez Louise, sorry about that. And my other one more thing is there's going to be a Munsters movie. Yes, it was just announced. There's going to be a Munsters movie directed by Rob Zombie, who did the Halloween 1 and 2 reboots. So I will be optimistic about that. That might turn out pretty cool. Hopefully it'll be done as a comedy. We'll see. And as you guys know, I got some negative reaction to my contest. I got to clear that up. But speaking of the contest, giving away every episode ever made of Lost in Space. Holding up for the camera. These are on DVD. 84 shows with a lot of extras and interviews. Not Blu-ray, it's DVD. And I got like some negative comments about DVD. One person wrote me and said, "No one's watching DVD anymore. No one cares about DVD anymore." Well, fair enough. But this is a nostalgia show, so mind your own business. I'm still going to give away every episode ever made of Lost in Space to one lucky audience member. And I digress. These actually retail pretty high. So, it's not like a trip. It's not like a vacation. That was one of my favorite moments, by the way, of the Nostalgic Podblast. I announced a contest where I would be giving away, I made it sound like it was a trip to Beverly Hills, California, all expenses paid, but it was just a DVD set of Beverly Hills 90210. But here's the thing. Yeah, you can stream, of course. Look, I do the modern jazz, but a lot of people still have DVD players, and I'm even offering to give away a free DVD portable player. Now, it kind of irritates me that the modern laptops don't have a chamber for DVDs or discs, and I know technology evolves. Maybe that is old school. I wish I could find the actual comment, but somebody said, "Why are you giving away DVDs? No one cares about DVDs. That's old technology." You're right, but we're a nostalgia show. So that's why I'm going to do that, and it does cost me something. So if you don't want it, don't enter, but here's how you're going to win it if you do want it. I mentioned this before. There is an episode of Lost in Space where the hyperdrive and hyperspace and starships are mentioned. I mentioned this in a previous Nostalgic Podblast. So, tell me the episode title of Lost in Space that covered this principle. Anyone who's won in the past is not eligible. If Scooter, if you're out there, I don't know if you can play DVDs. You may hate Lost in Space, I don't know. But you may know the answer to this. Ask someone who knows the show. I wanted to come up with a question you can't just Google, okay? You have to know the show or know someone that knows the show. The original, not the Netflix version of Lost in Space. We're talking the original Irwin Allen series. It would be great for your grandkids or kids, or even you yourself if you want to relive them. These are mostly uncut. There's one episode, the Christmas episode, which is a black and white episode, where there was one little bit that was missing, a few seconds, where Will is taking carbon tetrachloride from a general store when he traveled to Earth, and they were behind the times. It's supposed to be the year 1998, and he even notes in the story it's behind the times because they were using old sets from like the Andy Griffith Show. But this guy catches him shoplifting carbon tet, which is family back on the planet they're stranded on, pre-planets. He beamed like with a beam of light, kind of like the transporter on Star Trek, even though this was the season before Star Trek and the transporter. And the sheriff picks him up in the air, and that little bit is missing on the DVDs. They corrected it on the Blu-rays, but it was just a little moment where he's like, wait a minute. When Will Robinson's leaving the store with the carbon tet in his hand, he picks him up in the air, and that's missing on the DVDs. But other than that, they're uncut. So with that said, let's see if there's anything else that I missed. Oh, got a little birthday greeting from, listen to this.
In the best way. The Nostalgic Podblast.
Hear that? That is Kevin Smith mentioning the Nostalgic Podblast. The Kevin Smith, the movie director. Thank you, Kevin Smith. Now, actually, truth be told, I was just in chat in his live show. And his live show, go to Kevin Smith's YouTube channel, subscribe to it. But his show, it's a live podcast called Fat Man and Beyond. And he read my comments. So if I were a jerk, I would edit that out of context. But that'd be kind of a dick move, wouldn't it? I was going to edit it originally where he's going, Nostalgic Podblast, and make it sound like he's endorsing us, which certainly he's not. He just read my comment. So I was going to do that. Let's see. Make sure I didn't leave anything out as we sign off. Yes. We've got to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate right now. I can't believe I went so long. The Nostalgic Podblast is 2 years old, so got to celebrate. Got to celebrate this milestone. Podblast is 2 years old. Happy Podblasting to you. Is to Nostalgic Podblast is to Podblast. It's Podblast turning to. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to our contributors, Ryan Settles and Daniel Cochran. Danny Cochran, he's working today. And Jeff, I appreciate your support out there, brother. Jeff Logan. And, of course, Barry King, BK on the air, and Alan Sanders, who was tuning in as he does his flooring. Thanks for being a part of the Nostalgic Podblast second birthday. We will see you next time on the Nostalgic Podblast. Have a great week. Be safe. Be productive. Make those dreams come true, everybody. We'll see you next week with a brand new topic on the Nostalgic Podblast. Catch you then.